After Naruto and Sasuke's rematch. Naruto and Sasuke had just freed everyone from Tsukiyomi and the tailed beasts from Chibaku Tensei when the Sage of the Six Paths, Hagoromo, appeared. "Congratulations boys," he said smiling at Sasuke and Naruto. "You two have truly brought peace to this world. We still have some unfinished business," he said, making Naruto and Sasuke serious. The three of them were alone with only the Bijuu with them. "I see now letting the tailed beasts run free will only bring disaster once again." They all nodded knowing it was true, as it only took one power-drunk person to try and destroy the world again. Madara. "There is only one safe place for all the Bijuu. Naruto, may I have the honor of being their Jinchuriki? Don't worry, they will fuse, as without the ghetto statue they will not fuse," he said, knowing what Naruto was about to argue. Of course only he noticed the glare the Bijuu gave him as he asked Naruto to be the Jinchuriki of all nine. "I understand, if it helps everyone I would be honored to take on the role," Naruto said with a smile. All the Bijuu sighed knowing what was about to happen. "I see, thank you then Naruto," Hagoromo said with a smile before he clapped his hands and black lines spread from him straight to the Bijuu. They were all converted into chakra and sucked into Naruto with a new seal that was better than the last. "Forgive me, Naruto," he said as he disappeared. As soon as he was gone, Naruto started screaming, surprising Sasuke, who had been watching without saying anything. Naruto's body started to glow white before a massive explosion occurred with him at the epicenter. The explosion was so large that it spread out, covering the entire elemental nation, wiping out everything. At the epicenter, Naruto was in great pain before he passed out, unaware of the black hole that had opened up at his location that was sucking him into it. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes again, not noticing the higher pitch in his voice. He cursed the old man. He didn't say it would hurt this much. He looked up and saw an unfamiliar ceiling greet him. He noticed that he was in a much more comfortable bed than the one he had in his apartment. He tried to figure out where he was and what was happening. The last thing he remembered was the old sage sealing all the tailed beasts within him, before excruciating pain racked his body. He was about to wake up before he felt a familiar tug on his subconscious. Allowing it, he found himself in the white expanse that was his mindscape when he visited the tailed beasts. He found all 9 of them staring at him with strange expressions. Kurama, however, looked like he was going to break a vein trying not to laugh. "Okay, what's going?" Naruto stopped talking when he heard his voice. It was different. It sounded like a child talking. Starting to feel fear well up in him, he finally looked down at himself. He noticed his body was small and he looked at his hands to find them miniature in size. Isobu, taking pity on Naruto, summoned a water mirror in front of him. When Naruto looked down at himself, he found his fears confirmed. Because staring back at him was a small version of himself. He was wearing an orange long-sleeved shirt with black shorts. "Kya!" he screamed before passing out. That's when Kurama got too much, and he started laughing and rolling around. "Oh, this is too much," he said before being slapped by Matabi. "Kurama, calm down. You know what this means," he scolded him. At that point Kurama controlled himself, but he would chuckle every now and then. "Yes, I did, that's why I wanted to laugh now and not later," he finally said. That's when Naruto woke up again. "Why am I small again? What happened? It was that old man's fault, wasn't it? I bet Sasuke was laughing at me. Ooh, when I get those two." Naruto shot a quick glance before he calmed down enough to turn to look at the Bijuu. They were all looking at him with pity now that he recognized his appearance. "What happened?" Naruto asked, feeling his fear rising. "Naruto, before I start let me say that we don't know why that old man did it." Kurama started with a serious air about him which confused Naruto at first, but he just nodded his head indicating he wouldn't blame the Bijuu for whatever the old man did. "You see, when we were all sealed into you without the ghetto statue that acted as a buffer for all of our chakra, it caused an explosion on a massive scale. The ghetto statue acts as a buffer to hold our chakra and hold us together, so without it, when all of our chakra met in one place, it would explode. The explosion was so big that it engulfed all of the elemental nations and created a hole in the fabric of space and time, sending you through it. We then proceeded to travel through the fabric of space and time until your chakra and body were stable enough to enter our nearby dimension as well." As Kurama explained, Naruto's eyes grew larger with his mouth hanging open in shock and tears began to well up in his eyes. "Once we entered, your spirit claimed your body from this dimension and here we are now. We are in an alternate universe, so you are a child again. I'm not sure what other changes happened. I know you are about 8 years old now. Since everything is stable now, we don't have to worry about exploding again." Kurama finished. "So all of my friends and loved ones are gone now," Naruto said quietly, letting his tears fall. The now 8-year-old hugged his leg tightly. "Yes, but there is still hope, Naruto," a new voice said, surprising them all. They turned to find the old sage in their shared mindscape. Naruto's eyes turned to anger before he just sighed. I want to hate you right now, but I know you did it to make a reality where no one could abuse their power anymore. But how can you say there is still hope? He said, shouting the last part with tears of frustration on his face. Because I controlled your goals and chose a universe where the only changes were very small compared to the other universes. He said, not bothered by the shouting. It means you can still be friends with everyone and you can save more people because you know what's going to happen. He said, surprising her. I understand, she said, slightly understanding what he meant. Now, I am also here to tell you that your past is not affected that much, because things work just a little differently in this universe. Here, while yes, your parents still sacrificed themselves, the Sandaime was able to keep you a secret Jinchuriki. He also told you who your mother is, so you live at your parents' house now. He said, surprising Naruto with the consequences of this, as it meant no more glares are being ignored. Ironically, your name is still Naruto Uzumaki in this universe. Before you came here, your current goal was to follow in your mother's footsteps and become Hokage, while you planned to specialize in the same things she did, Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. Although now that you're here, I assume that will change since you know both of your parents. You also know the secret meaning of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, so you can specialize in anything. Before I go, I should tell you to ask the Bijuu about the bloodlines some of them passed down to you. I will tell you that since you are a relative of the Shodaime, that when your water and earth elements are strong enough, you can unlock the Mokuten. Farewell and good luck in your second life, Naruto. Oh, one more thing, in this world, you are not constantly watched by Hiruzen since he is not afraid of you dying, meaning you can use that as an excuse for why you are so strong, but eventually you will have to tell him about some things. Hagoromo said after disappearing far from the long speech. He relayed the rest of future Naruto's memories to alternate dimension Naruto as well. Alright guys, looks like we have to get busy. I already know for a fact that my chakra control is shot to death with all of you being here. So what did he say about some of you passing on your bloodlines to your Jinchuriki? Naruto asked curiously. Well, Naruto, all Bijuu have special abilities that reflect their vessels. For example, Shukaku has magnet release, Matabi has a special blue flame that all of your fire styles will inherit now, and Isobu gives its host expert control over water. As you know from Son Goku, he gave you lava release, Saiken has acid release, Chome has scale release, Yuki has ink release, and I, as you know, can mold nature chakra to you and heal you. Kurama explained to a starry-eyed Naruto. I remember using Shukaku and Son Goku's abilities in the war. I can't believe I'm going to have so many cool new jutsu. That can't be copied either. Ha, take that Tem. Naruto said back to his cheerful self at the prospect of all these new powers. You do know that you have to train a lot harder than anyone else because of all these new powers, right? I mean, you also have the chance to unlock Mokuten. We have 4 years before you make Genin. You should use this time to the fullest, expanding and abusing your Shadow Clone special ability. Plus, you can't forget about Kenjutsu and Fuinjutsu. Kurama told him. Yeah, I know. I think to take full advantage of this we should talk to Gigi and tell him about the whole situation, that way I can skip the academy with his permission and just come for the exams. He said. Then, as if remembering something, his face turned bright red in anger. Aw man, I can't believe I'm short again. I hope I'll hit my growth spurt faster now that I can eat better this time. Naruto shouted. At this, Kurama started laughing again as if remembering the situation. Naruto got a tick at this. Oi, you stupid fox, it's not like I asked to be a kid again. He shouted at him. Don't worry Naruto, we'll help you. Matabi said reassuringly while Chome circled Kurama. Thanks, she said with a smile. She then disappeared from his mindscape. Finally waking up, Naruto looked around his room. Now that he knew where he was, he got up and walked to the bathroom. Once there, he took off his clothes and quickly took a shower. After getting out of the bathroom, he went to his drawers and took out his clothes for the day. Putting on a mesh shirt first and then a sleeveless orange kimono top over it. He then put on a different pair of black shorts. He also put on his black shinobi sandals, and finally went out of the house. Outside, he found himself in the forest behind the Hokage monument. He let out a sigh, before jumping away towards the tower. 5 minutes later, he nervously walked up to the Hokage's secretary. He just remembered this would be the first time he saw Gigi alive in 3 years. Anyo, excuse me, is the Hokage busy? He politely asked. From Naruto's memory, he wasn't hated and he wasn't a troublemaker, so it was more polite. The secretary looked up and smiled. Oh hello Naruto-chan. He's not, so you can come in, she said. Naruto smiled and walked to the door, resisting the urge to open it like he usually did. Knocking, he heard, "Come in," and took a deep breath before opening the door. There he was, sitting behind his desk like usual, looking peaceful. He controlled himself and spoke. Gigi, we need to talk. This is serious, so can you seal the room? He said seriously. This surprised Hiruzen, before he nodded, looking at her seriously. Anbu, please leave, he said, and 4 people appeared before disappearing again. He then waved hand signs before sealing the room. Okay Naruto-kun, what's wrong? He asked in a grandfatherly way before he was shocked as he hugged her while crying because he couldn't hold himself back anymore. I missed you so much, Gigi. She said, crying into her robe. But we went out for ramen yesterday. What's wrong? He asked confused. Getting control of himself, he let go of her and stood up before wiping his eyes. It's not that, you see, I'm from the future. He said. He then raised his hand before she could say anything. Before you get skeptical, I'll show you proof. He said and raised his hand. Guys, help me with chakra control for a moment. He asked the Bijuu before a blue ball of energy formed in his hand, causing Hiruzen to drop his pipe in surprise. Naruto let the rasengan disappear before facing him seriously again. Explain. Hiruzen said, taking this seriously now. I plan on utilizing all my knowledge of the future Gigi, so please don't press if I leave out information. Just know I'll let you know when something important comes up, since nothing major will happen until I turn 12. He started and she nodded. Well then, first, I'm not sure if he's been recruited with them, but Itachi joined an organization called the Akatsuki, whose main goal is to collect all the Bijuu. By the time I was 15, they had gathered all but the 8 tails and 9 tails. All the other countries, finally recognizing them as a threat, called a meeting where a shinobi alliance was formed from the 5 great nations. It then turned into a great war, because Orochimaru's apprentice mastered Edo Tensei and was summoned. Hundreds of S-class shinobi were killed. The army was made from a missing nin named Zetsu, who was the son of the rabbit goddess. We were at an advantage in the war, until one event changed that. He said. During this time Hiruzen's eyes widened, especially from his deep knowledge of Orochimaru and Itachi. He was also afraid to know that his old student knew Edo Tensei. That event was the Edo Tensei used to revive Madara Uchiha. Q gasped. With the advantage of the Edo Tensei, he slaughtered countless shinobi. I had mastered the Kyuubi's chakra at this point and was in a full-tailed beast transformation fight. We were at a stalemate because Orochimaru switched sides and joined us and called the previous Hokage with the Shodaime who stopped Madara. The instigator of all this and the one who attacked Konoha during my birth and released the Kyuubi was Obito Uchiha. Q bigger gasp. He had Jiraiya's old student under his thumb, Nagato, who I myself killed when he destroyed Konoha. They managed to get his Rinnegan eye and used one of its powers to fully revive Madara to the world of the living. Because his impatience got the better of him, he used fragments of the Kyuubi and Gyuki's chakra to revive the incomplete Jubi. He took a breath before continuing. This is where things got bad because it caused us to have to send most of the shinobi back, and only the heavy hitters could survive that. Furthermore, Madara absorbed it into himself and became on the level of the Sage of the Six Paths. He destroyed us even more, before his body was taken by Kagaya Otsutsuki, the rabbit goddess and the progenitor of chakra. She was untouchable and killed everything. At this point, me and Sasuke Uchiha learned that we were transmigrators of Asura and Indra, and the chakra activated, giving us 2 special seals that would seal Kagaya if we touched her at the same time. It wasn't easy and she could create dimensions, but after much loss we finally marked her and sealed her into the moon. Using our powers, we split the Jubi back into the Bijuu. I'll take a look at the rest, for that's not knowledge I can divulge, but I was named the safest place for all the Bijuu, as I managed to befriend them all, and they were all sealed into me, albeit separately, to avoid the Jubi. Hiruzen's long explanation after getting over his shock listened intently. It had the unintended consequence that without the Jubi's body being able to contain the combined chakra of the tailed beasts, it exploded as a massive chakra bomb that tore through space and time, and I woke up here after it stabilized, making the fear of another bomb moot. He finished finally. There was a long silence for a few moments before Hiruzen finally spoke. So you're saying nothing started until you were 12? You could have just withheld this information and just waited, why come to me? He asked, wondering about his motives. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Well, I was hoping you could do it so I wouldn't have to attend the academy and go straight to the genin exams. He's only been there a year and it's not an air class. You see, I have a lot of training to do and need to get my chakra control back since the other 8-tailed beast sealed inside me ruined my control, since I have more chakra now. Also, having them there caused me to inherit a lot of bloodlines to train in, and since I trust you, I'll list them. I have the magnet style, lava style, acid style, ink style, scale style, boil style, mastery of the water style, 2-tailed blue flames, and since I'm a distant Senju relative, and have a strong affinity for earth and water, I have the wood style. I have all 5 affinities because of this as well. He stated this. This caused Hiruzen to gape and stare in shock. I see, I can give you this because I trust you, Naruto-kun. I would rather promote you now, but since there is a law in place to prevent another, Itachi, I will have to wait until you pass the genin exam. I will send you scrolls to help you along the way, Naruto-kun, and will visit whenever I can. He said with a smile. He also quoted Itachi. Naruto smiled in relief at that. Well, before I go I have some parting advice, Gigi, that will prove useful in the future. First, you are the Hokage and this is a dictatorship, meaning the civilian council has nothing to do with you. Second, make sure Kakashi is not left stagnant again. It is imperative that he regains his strength. His poor teaching skills almost got us killed on our first C-rank mission. He said, telling him who his genin sensei was. He nodded with a new fire in his eyes at the revelation of all this. Especially considering that Konoha had been destroyed. Oh, and call Jiraiya too, I want my summoning back. I am a toad summoner and have mastered sage training at the age of 15. He said as he left the room. Hiruzen just chuckled. Always the unexpected, huh, Naruto-kun? He said out loud before getting to work. Some things just weren't going to happen this time. As soon as Naruto got home, he went to his backyard and summoned 1,000 clones with the help of Bijuu chakra. Step 1. Chakra control. He said before leaving for work. 4 years later. Alright class, before we take the exam, there are others joining us to take it. Ruruka announced to the class of prospective genin. Of course this got some shouts. What? How come they get to skip the academy? Kiba yelled. They were trained outside the village and got permission from Hokage-sama. Ruruka said. There was still some grumbling, but everyone knew they couldn't go against the Hokage. Alright, you can come in now. Ruruka said to the door. It opened and as soon as the students walked in, a group of girls blushed and started drooling, while the guys were instantly jealous. The boy who walked in had spiky, light blonde hair, with 2 bangs framing his face, making him look like a mini Yondaime. His cute face with 6 black lines decorating his cheeks like whiskers, made some of the girls want to pet him. He had sky blue eyes. He wore a long-sleeved orange kimono-like shirt with dark embroidered edges, held tightly with a black obi, and on the bottom left side of the shirt was a red Uzumaki swirl. What Kushina wore as a genin except orange and black with long sleeves and black anbu pants with pockets along with black shinobi sandals. He had a ninjutsu strapped horizontally on his back waist. It is customary to introduce yourself and state your goals. Ruruka said with a friendly smile which he returned. Hello, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki, the Red Death of Konoha. My goal is to follow in my mother's footsteps and become Hokage like she tried to. He said with a bright smile. Sasuke was actually more interested in him now. 1. He had powerful parents and 2. He was from the Uzumaki clan which was a powerful clan. You're her son, huh? That's a nice goal you have there too. Well, just sit down and we can begin. Ruruka said with a smile. Naruto initially wondered where Mizuki was, before he remembered he was caught as a spy last week, trying to steal the forbidden scroll since he wasn't there this time. He sat in the back and waited for the test to start. Okay class, first we will have the written test, then throwing, taijutsu, and lastly ninjutsu. Now I will take the written test. Ruruka explained as he handed out the tests. You have 1 hour. Begin, he said, and just like that everyone began. 1 hour later they were outside standing in front of the test dummies. Now I will give you 10 kunai and 10 shuriken. This test will test your accuracy and speed of throwing, he said, ordering the children to line up. The clan heirs did as expected of them, and some of the civilians did well as well. Sasuke scored the best, getting perfect accuracy with good speed. Naruto stood last and he grabbed all the shuriken at once, holding them with crossed arms, and released them so fast, it defied the genin's expectations. They all embedded themselves in fatal areas. He repeated it with the kunai. All buried deep into the posts. He got a perfect score as well as incredible speed. Sasuke was now more interested in him. Next is taijutsu. I will spar with you, and you have 2 minutes to land enough hits within the time limit or push me out of the ring. Bonus points if you manage to get me out of the ring. He explained to them. Once again as expected, the clan heirs performed well with Sasuke managing to get Iruka to take a step out of the ring. Next was Naruto. He stepped into the ring and took a stance that none of them recognized, except the Hokage who was watching with his telescope jutsu. He smirked at the sight of the technique, knowing Iruka would be hurt after this. Hajime, Iruka called. Instantly, Naruto in his guard aimed a knife hand at his throat, which he brought his arm up to block, too late to realize that was what he intended, and his other hand sent a flat palm to the arm he had used to block, and he used his knife hand to punch him straight in the chest, sending him back a little. Iruka coughed a little at the force of the blow before charging at him. He didn't know that was the style he wanted to do, plus he was limited to genin level, so it shouldn't have surprised him to see him counter his punch by using his arm to grab him, and spun behind him as he sent a high kick to the back of his head, sending him stumbling out of the ring. The others were amazed at Naruto's taijutsu skills, while Sasuke smirked. After getting up and rubbing the sore spot, he announced that the last section would be done in the classroom. The ninjutsu section consisted of the henge, kawarimi, and clone jutsu, as well as one additional jutsu as a bonus. The clan heirs had this easy with each of them showing off their signature jutsu as a bonus. The civilians who did it had no bonus to retreat. Sasuke showed off his fireball jutsu, earning screams from his fangirls. He just smirked. Once again, it was Naruto's turn with everyone watching him now that he had perfected everything. "Alright Naruto-kun, henge likes me," he said, and with one hand sign he did it easily. "Okay, switch to the seat next to me," he said again, one hand seal, then he did it. "Okay, do the clone jutsu," he said, and without a hand sign another Naruto appeared beside him. Surprised by his abilities so far, he asked if he wanted to do a bonus jutsu. Naruto just smirked and decided to show off like Sasuke. He held the snake sign in front of his mouth and, "Lava style, molten shot," he said, and his mouth swelled up before he shot a glob of liquid at the training dummy. As soon as it made contact, it melted right through it. Panicking, Iruka used a water jutsu to put it out before it could burn anything. "Kekkei Genkei?" Iruka asked, surprised at the level of nature manipulation. He just nodded, still smiling. "Ah, I see, congratulations, you passed. Pick a headband and go back to your seat." He picked up a black one and tied it around his neck, before facing the shocked class and sitting down. Iruka then explained how proud he was of all of them, before dismissing them by saying they had to be there tomorrow for teamwork. At that moment, all the newly minted genin left. Naruto smiled happily as he left. Of course, he was greeted by his classmates once he was outside. "That was amazing. I didn't know there was another Kekkei Genkei user in Konoha," Kiba said in awe. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Well, I haven't been around the village that much. I live nearby, not in it," he replied. I see, anyway, want to go get some ramen with me and the others?" he asked while pointing at the other rookie genin waiting for him. Naruto smiled and nodded. "Sure, I happen to know a great place if you all want to go," he asked. "I'm cool with anything," Shikamaru replied, and everyone nodded. Even Sasuke was present this time. "Awesome, let's go to Ichiraku's. They have the best ramen ever," he said cheerfully and grabbed Kiba while dragging him along. The others chuckled at his cheerful attitude and followed. 10 minutes later we headed to a small ramen stand. Walking in, Naruto called out to the chef. "Hey Tyuki, my friends and I would like some ramen," Naruto said cheerfully. Tyuki turned and smiled. "Sure, anything for my number one customer Naruto-kun," he said back as the 12 rookies sat down. "So where do you live, Naruto?" Shikamaru asked curiously. "My house is in the forest above the Hokage monument," he replied back. "I see, that must be cool. So, is lava style your clan's Kekkei Genkei or something?" he asked. The others just listened. I only know of one Uzumaki besides me who has it, and a few in Iwa have it awakened. It has to do with how strong your affinity for fire and earth is at birth. If you have a really high affinity for them, you can unlock them," he said, not mentioning anything about the fact that he had more. "I see," Shikamaru said, his curiosity satisfied. "Oh Naruto-chan, is that you?" Ayame asked as she put down their bowls of ramen, and upon seeing Naruto she ran up to him and hugged him tightly like he was a stuffed animal, making Naruto blush. The rookies all laughed at this and started eating. "Well, I should get going, it was nice meeting you all," Naruto said cheerfully after he finished before getting up and leaving. Ino had hearts in her eyes as she left. "He was awesome," she stated, causing the others to roll their eyes at the change of men and Sakura to pump her fists at the loss of a love rival. After Naruto left, she went to the Hokage's office to talk to him. After she was let in, she found him alone. "Hey G," she said cheerfully. Hiruzen chuckled at his usual attitude. "Hello Naruto-kun, so I take it your efforts were successful?" he asked. Naruto nodded. "Yes, I have full control over my chakra and full control over all my nature releases," he said happily. This surprised Hiruzen greatly at his proclamation, as it basically said he was very advanced. "Oh, and how did you complete training in so many natures?" he asked curiously. His response was flat. "Gigi, shadow clones, and monster chakra reserves," he said. "Ah," he said, as that explained it all. Only Naruto could train like that, as the mental strain was handled by the Bijuu and his reserves were so large that it wouldn't hurt him. "By the way, I came to Gigi because in a few months a man from Nami will be requesting AC rank. Send my team on a mission," he said quietly and seriously, too quiet for the Anbu to hear. Hiruzen nodded, understanding that it was an important event. "Well, see you later Gigi," he said and left with a smile. Hiruzen smiled at his cheerful attitude, hoping he would see the day he was named Hokage. Yes, he will lead this village to a better future, he thought, before returning to work. The next day, Naruto woke up in a good mood and put on the shinobi clothes he had worn yesterday. He had found a few sets in his closet since his mother became a genin, so he decided to use them, only changing the colors around it and making it a male version with long sleeves. After strapping the ninjutsu on his back, he left his house and headed for the academy. He cheerfully greeted all the villagers he passed and they waved back at the cheerful boy. He was very glad his status was kept a secret this time because it meant he could bond without worry. He arrived at the academy and cheerfully greeted his fellow genin before taking his seat, preparing for team assignments. Iruka arrived and everyone sat down. Before I tell you your teams, let me tell you how proud I am of all of you. You are all now representing this village in the Hokage, so make us proud. He said, smiling at them. Okay, let's get started. Team 1 is. Team 7 is Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Sakura's crush on Ino, and Naruto Uzumaki. All the girls are jealous now of Sakura for having the two hottest guys in class on her team. Your sensei is Kakashi Hatake, said Iruka. Sasuke himself sighed because he was glad he had Naruto because he showed he was strong and better than everyone there and was glad he had him on his team to compensate for Sakura's weakness. Team 8 is Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Shino Aburame. Your sensei is Kurenai. Team 10 is Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akamichi. Your sensei is Asuma Sarutobi. Your Jonin sensei will be here in a few minutes to pick you up. Good luck to you all, he said and left the room. After he left, the Jonin sensei came in. One with a beard and a sash with a fire symbol on it and was called Team 10. A beautiful woman with long black hair and a white and red kimono-like top was called Team 8. After everyone was all called, only Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto were left. Why is our sensei the only one late? Sakura complained. Our sensei is Kakashi Hatake. He is always 3 hours late for every meeting. You should just relax, Naruto told him, catching Sasuke's interest. You know him? He asked. Yes, he is my mother's friend. He is known as Kakashi of the Sharingan because he received one from his Uchiha teammate on a mission when he died. He is said to have copied 1,000 jutsu which earned him the moniker, Copycat Kakashi. He is one of the strongest jonin in the village. He is usually late because he is visiting the memorial stone at Training Ground 7. He told them, surprising his teammates at his knowledge. Sasuke, especially when he heard that his sensei had the Sharingan. He's probably there now if you guys just want to meet him there, he asked. They nodded and he got up and motioned for them to follow him. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the training grounds and found their sensei standing at the memorial stone. He had gravity-defying silver hair. He had a mask covering his face and was wearing the standard Jonin outfit. His headband was pulled down to cover one eye that Sasuke assumed was the Sharingan. Hey Kakashi-sensei, you were supposed to meet us 30 minutes ago in the classroom. Naruto called out to him. He turned around and his eyes were smiling. Oh, but my cute little genin decided to meet me here. How could I possibly say no? He said, causing them to sweat drop since they would have stayed in class if Naruto wasn't there. Well, since you're here, why don't we introduce ourselves? I'm sure Naruto-kun has told you a little about me, he said with an eye smile. With Naruto knowing about his mother, Kakashi was allowed to visit Naruto when he had free time, so they already had a good relationship. Pinky, you go first, he said, pointing at Sakura. How would you like to introduce ourselves, sensei? She said, causing Kakashi to sigh. You know, your likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, she replied. Oh, well then my name is Sakura Haruno and the thing I like who. My dream for the future is. I don't like pigs Ino, she said, causing the others to sigh at her fangirl answer. Kakashi pointed at Sasuke next. You're next, Mr. Broody, she said, causing Sasuke to frown. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like anything and I have a lot of things I don't like. I don't have a dream, but I do have an ambition to kill a certain person, she said. Kakashi then pointed at Naruto who smiled cheerfully. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, I like ramen, ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu. I dislike the time it takes to make ramen and people who can't tell the difference between a scroll and the kunai sealed inside it. I hate rapists. My dream for the future is to become Hokage, she said happily. Kakashi smiled at her intro. So I have a fangirl, an avenger, and a budding seal master, she thought, even though she had no idea what level Naruto was at. She may have visited him, but she didn't know his strength. She just knew he was advanced in many ways, which was why she was happy to be on his team. Alright then, be here tomorrow at 6 and skip breakfast or you'll throw up. We'll be doing the original genin test which has a 66% failure rate. Yane, he said, smiling at the two shocked faces before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Before you go, you should eat breakfast. He likes to play mind games and show up 2 hours late. Naruto told them before disappearing in a swirl of leaves, surprising his teammates again. Sasuke was only interested in the unknown jutsu. Before he left, dodging Sakura's attempts to ask him out. The next morning at 8 a.m. Naruto arrived at the clearing and saw the haggard appearance of his teammates, raising an eyebrow. I told you so, he said. They just humphed at him. However, he just smiled at them. Well, you're lucky, I made extra food in case you two didn't listen, he said, and black lines appeared on his arms before he unsealed 2 bowls of hot ramen. He handed them to the two who took them with a thank you and ate them greedily. 30 minutes later Kakashi arrived at the training grounds. You're late, Sakura yelled at him. He just chuckled and his eyes smiled. Well, a black cat crossed my path, so I had to take a detour before I ran into an old lady and had to help her with her shopping. Then, I got lost on the path of life, he said. This caused the 3 of them to sweat drop for some lame excuse. Kakashi took his backpack and carried it to 3 stumps. He took out an alarm clock and 2 bells. Alright, the alarm is set for noon. Your goal is to get one of these bells from me. One of you will definitely fail and be sent back to the academy. You have until noon to do so. Good luck. The exam starts now. Oh, and come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't even touch me. As soon as he said that, the 3 of them jumped away. They're all well hidden. I can see Sasuke up there in the tree and Sakura in the bushes, and as expected Naruto has completely disappeared. I wonder if he knows the meaning of the exam, he thought as he took out a book to read. With Naruto as soon as the exam started. After Naruto disappeared into the forest, he created 2 shadow clones to find his teammates. The first clone went to find Sasuke and the other clone went after Sakura. With shadow clone number 1. It had just found Sasuke who was in the tree. Sasuke, she whispered to get his attention, as he spun around to attack, but calmed down when he saw her. What? She said. Like I said yesterday, Kakashi loves to play mind games. This test is a trick to separate us. Konoha is all about teamwork and that's what this test is all about. There's no such thing as a 2-genin squad, it's always a 3-man squad. She told him. Sasuke's eyes widened. I see, so this is to see if we'll work together for the bells or split up and fight over them. Plus we're newly graduated genin, so they can't expect us to beat an elite jonin like Kakashi. Sasuke said, thinking logically. Yeah, and I have a plan. I'm just a shadow clone, the other clone is talking to Sakura. I want you to distract her and I can get the bells. Use this, he said, handing her something, before appearing. With shadow clone number 2. He had just told Sakura the same thing and told her to help Sasuke distract Kakashi. It then appeared as well. With Kakashi. Kakashi was reading and wondering when the first person to break the spell would attack, before he jumped out of the way as a fireball fell in his place. It could be Naruto or Sasuke. His question was answered when Sasuke appeared and attacked him in a fierce taijutsu match. Oh, you're pretty good for a genin, Kakashi said as he had to slap Sasuke's hand away from the bell. He raised an eyebrow at Sasuke's smirk, before his eyes widened when Sasuke jumped back and was littered with kunai, thrown by Sakura. Sasuke's smirk never left, even with the kawarimi. So those two are working together, but where is Naruto? Kakashi wondered, already knowing he was up to something if he had those two working together. His question was answered when 4 Narutos appeared from the ground around him in a square shape, all with bird hand signs in front of their faces. FUNN, 4 pillars chakra ceiling, he shouted. His eyes widened as black lines appeared from their feet to surround him. He found he couldn't move either. Then the lines grabbed him and stopped all movement and he found his chakra was sealed. Naruto walked over to him and took a bell from his waist, as his 2 teammates appeared behind him. He threw them both bells. How? Kakashi asked, wondering why his body was locked up enough for Naruto to use Fuinjutsu on him. When you fought Sasuke in the taijutsu match, I gave him a paralyzing seal to use on you that he placed on your back. Naruto said, grabbing the seal from Kakashi's back to show him. I see, I assume you all have a reason for the exam, he asked and they all said, teamwork. Kakashi smiled. Congratulations Team 7, you all passed. I follow the adage that breaking the rules makes you trash, but abandoning your teammates is worse than trash. This will be our team motto, he told his team. They all smiled. Meet me here tomorrow, same time, for your first mission, he told them before shunshining away. 3 months later. Do you have the target in sight? A voice said through the headset. Negative, another voice said. Me neither, a new voice said. I have it in my hand, came a different voice. Good Joe. What? Naruto, how did you catch it so easily? Kakashi said floored. I bought some cat food before this mission. Naruto answered back through the headset, as he walked to the rendezvous point. Seriously, your intuition scares me sometimes, Naruto. Sasuke said as he met up with her, to find her petting Tora the menace of genins. Sakura joined them a second later with Kakashi following behind her. That's a good thing, Naruto said to Sasuke. He just grinned, before looking away. Alright Team 7, let's head to the Hokage Tower to report on a successful mission. Kakashi said, leading them off. I wonder what our next mission is. Naruto said out loud, once they reached the tower. I'm not too sure. Hokage-sama told me he has something special for us. Kakashi replied. Naruto responded as they knocked on her door and received a, come in. Walking in, they saw the daimyo's wife in the Hokage's office, seemingly waiting for the genin team. Upon seeing her cat, she ran over to Naruto and grabbed Tora who was crushing the poor cat. Seeing this, Naruto decided to take pity on her. Anyo, excuse me ma'am. The cat probably wouldn't have run away if you hadn't crushed it while you were holding it. He said to the woman who looked at him, then back to the cat, before smiling as he hugged it gently. Actually, he's a trained cat that comes from a long line of cats that were trained to help genin with their tracking. I only held him this tight to keep up the act, you might say. The woman said as she smiled at the shocked genin. Even Kakashi was surprised by this. He remembered all the scratches he received from the damn cat. Congratulations on another mission Team 7 has passed. Your continued string of successful missions has impressed me enough where I assign you your first C rank. She said, surprising everyone but Naruto with this information, as he knew it was coming after he warned him about the guy from Wave and the mission parameters. This was also why he told Kakashi to train the genin better like Minato trained him. That's why they were ahead of the rest of the genin. Kakashi had already taught them to climb trees and walk on water. He then brought them chakra paper to test their affinity. He remembered that day well. Flashback no jutsu. 2 months after their team's formation, Kakashi said he had something special for them. Alright guys, today we're doing something a little different, he said to his team. He then pulled out 3 pieces of paper that Naruto recognized. You're testing our affinities today? He asked. His eyes smiled and he nodded. Yes, this is chakra paper. Channeling chakra into it will show you which element you are naturally aligned with. However, that doesn't mean you can't train other affinities. For example, my natural affinity is lightning, but I also train in earth and water, giving me a slight affinity for those elements. Kakashi explained to them as he handed them the paper. Now just channel some chakra into the paper, and the reaction will tell you your element. If it burns, you are fire. It will wrinkle if you are lightning. It will shatter into pieces if you are earth. If it gets soaked, you are water, and if it cuts, you are wind. He told them. They all nodded and channeled chakra into the paper, producing surprising results. Sasuke frowned, shocked, and then charged slightly, showing a major affinity for lightning and a minor for fire. Sakura crumbled to dust, showing earth. Naruto though surprised everyone but him. It was cut into 4 pieces and 1 piece was crushed, another soaked, and then another burned, and the last piece wrinkled into a ball. Showing major affinities for fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning. That's what I suspected. My main affinity before absorbing the 9 Bijuu was wind. The Kekkei Genkai they gave me the other affinities. He thought, before seeing the shocked expressions of his teammates. Although, Kakashi wasn't as he knew about his 2 Kekkei Genkai, but was still surprised to find out that he had all 5 affinities. Don't be surprised. This is what happens when people have elemental Kekkei Genkai. My lava style, as I've shown before, is a combination of fire and earth. I can also do the boil style, which is water and fire. Wind I can use to combine with earth to use the magnet style. He told his 2 shocked teammates and now shocked sensei who didn't know about his magnet release. He knew he needed to talk to the Hokage to see if he would be in for another surprise. Sasuke didn't know whether to be jealous or smirk at how strong he was since the two had a rivalry, even if Naruto seemed to be way ahead of him. Sakura was just amazed at how strong her teammates were. Although I don't use my magnet style that often, he said sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. Another sweat dropped on him for not using a powerful Kekkei Genkai when it was available to him. Anyway, now that you know your element, I can help you start your training in it. When you finish your first training, I'll teach you a jutsu for that style. Naruto, I already know your skill in your element, so I recommend training in your magnet style since you just admitted you don't use it much. He said to them. Naruto saluted, before going to his own clearing and throwing a bunch of kunai, before using a jutsu to teleport them. Alright, for you too, the first element exercise is the same for all elements. Just take a piece of leaf and try to recreate what the chakra paper does, using only your chakra. He told them, before they nodded and set off to do just that. Flashback no jutsu, Kai. Your mission is to guard a bridge builder to the wave country. He informed them, before he called his secretary to let the man in. They looked at the door to see an old man enter, reeking of alcohol. What? I pay you a lot of money and you give me a bunch of brats to protect me. I bet those three don't even know what they're doing. He slurred. He immediately regretted it when he pointed a short sword at his jewelry. Naruto just had a sweet smile on his face, making the men in the room shiver and a certain Neko-masked Anbu to remember his genin days. Era, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you just try to say that just because we're young, we can't be shinobi? He asked in a sickeningly sweet voice. Sweating in fear, Tazuna replied. No, I didn't say anything like that and I promise not to say anything like that in the future. He replied in fear. Naruto nodded, before sheathing his ninjutsu. By the way, Team 7, you are dismissed, but Kakashi and Naruto, please stay behind for a moment. The Hokage said. Sasuke and Sakura left at that moment. What do you need, Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked curiously. Naruto was also wondering. I have received some information that the bridge builders have turned hostile towards Gato of Gato Shipping, and that Gato was recently seen talking to Zabuza, the demon of the mist. He said, making Kakashi narrow his eyes. So the client lied about the mission level. Then why send a rookie genin team Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked confused. Since we're using this opportunity, I'll have a small squad of Anbu shadowing you in case something goes wrong, but I'm assigning Naruto to additional missions. The first is a B-rank assassination mission to kill Gato. I know Naruto's skill level on my own missions, so I know he can complete this. The other is an A-rank diplomat mission. If he can, I want him to ally with Zabuza and convince him to join the Mist Rebels and send a message to them from Konoha. Team 7's main mission will be raised to A rank upon your return if you do indeed meet Zabuza. Do not tell Sasuke or Sakura about the actual mission details as I want to see how they handle a situation where the intel is wrong. Hiruzen told the two. Kakashi was surprised that the Hokage trusted Naruto enough to kill someone. He was the same age as him when he had his first assassination mission, so he didn't hold it against him, plus he knew he was stronger than he let on, so he assumed the Hokage knew his true strength. He was a little hesitant about the diplomat mission, but he would help him if he could. He was glad that the Anbu would be shadowing them if things got out of hand. Naruto on the other hand, chuckled at the sneaky move the Hokage made to let him turn things around this time. I accept, Hokage-sama. He said, smiling, and she nodded and handed him a scroll. Give it to Zabuza if you can convince him. Destroy it if you can't. Good luck, she told them. They nodded and walked away. Kakashi met Sasuke and Sakura outside and told them to meet at the gates tomorrow at 9 and pack for 3 weeks. They nodded and left. The next day at 9 o'clock. Sasuke came to the gates with a small bag and saw Sakura with a large bag and she sighed. She looked up and saw that Naruto didn't have anything on him, though she did notice he now had black gloves on his hands. He figured she probably had whatever she was carrying sealed somewhere. That was when Kakashi came to the gate, with their client walking behind him looking aware. Hey, my cute little genin. Before we go, I need to see if you packed your stuff properly. He said after seeing Sakura's large bag. He then walked over to Sasuke and saw he had the proper pack complete with a tent and sleeping bag. He then walked over and fixed Sakura's bag, removing the overly heavy makeup and clothes, telling her to take them home, which she complained about but left after receiving a glare. She looked over at Naruto and raised an eyebrow. Sealing everything? She asked and he nodded with a smile. I see, good idea. Would you mind sealing mine and Sasuke's on us then and Sakura's when she gets here so we can move faster? She asked and Naruto nodded before he unsealed the brush and ink from his left sleeve and walked over to Kakashi. Please roll up your sleeves, Kakashi-sensei. She said and he did. He quickly wrote a storage seal on her arm. All done. Just add chakra and you can seal your stuff and add more chakra to take it out. He told her before doing the same with Sasuke. Sakura returned 30 minutes later and Naruto sealed his stuff too, and she giggled as the brush tickled her skin. Team 7 then set off on their first C-rank mission, which was secretly an A-rank mission. Since the client was aware, Kakashi decided to capture him so they could move at shinobi speed. Which meant it only took 4 hours to reach Wave Country. 2 hours into their journey, Naruto found a puddle of water that he knew the demon brothers were in. He used Anbu hand signs with Kakashi to not alert their teammates' suspicions. The two shinobi in that puddle. Chunin level. I can handle them easily if we just go through it normally, he gestured to her. She nodded and told the team that she needed a break so they would walk for a while. Kakashi kept an eye on Naruto, wondering what he was going to do. As they approached the puddle, he saw Sasuke tense up, so he must have suspected something fishy about him. He watched Naruto weave hand signs at an insane speed just as he stepped on the puddle. Boiling style, melting apparition. he called out, confusing their client and Sakura, while making Sasuke even more nervous. Naruto breathed out a mist straight into the puddle. Suddenly, they heard screams as two men jumped out of the puddle, their bodies burning as their skin sizzled. "You bastards, what did you do to us?" Gozu cried as he rolled on the ground, trying to stop the burning, just like his older brother Mizu. Naruto simply walked up to them and tapped their heads, causing black lines to spread across their bodies. Their bodies then locked up and they couldn't move anymore. "My boiling style is like acidic air, and once it comes into contact with your skin, it eats away at it. Kakashi-sensei, what should we do with them? This is supposed to be a C-rank mission and these two are the demon brothers of the mist. They are Chunin," Naruto asked innocently, making Kakashi smirk behind his mask at his acting. "Tazuna-san, is there something we should know?" Kakashi asked, leaking a bit of killing intent. Tazuna immediately broke down, telling them how his bridge would end the monopoly of a man named Gato and that he had no idea he hired ninjas to go after him. He then sobbed about how it was fine and that they could leave it alone since he would only be missed by his grandson and that his daughter would hate Konoha for the rest of her life, trying to guilt-trip him. At that, Kakashi just sighed and raised his hand. "Tazuna, we will continue this mission, but we must renegotiate your contract with us since the mission rank has gone up to B rank with that Chunin and the fact that we may be attacked by other ninjas along the way. Both are known acquaintances of Zabuza, the demon of the mist, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. If we encounter him, the mission goes up to a rank. We will renegotiate the terms and payment if that happens, and once your bridge is complete you can buy it," Kakashi told the sweaty man, who nodded his head furiously. Kakashi then turned to his genin team. "Team, normally genin wouldn't be allowed to continue this mission and we would go for false intel or call for backup. You're lucky to have me with you, so we can continue this mission. This is officially B rank now, so treat it like there might be other enemy shinobi encountered on this mission," he ordered them as they continued. Sakura shivered slightly, while Sasuke was shaking with excitement. The hidden Anbu were impressed by Naruto's skills, quick acting, knowledge of Anbu hand signs, and were curious as to how he used the paralysis seal so quickly. Once they continued their mission, Sakura asked Naruto something that confused her. "Naruto, how did you seal those people just by patting their heads? I know fuinjutsu requires ink, right?" she asked, confused about it. The hidden Anbu, Kakashi, and Sasuke were all excited as they were curious about it as well. Naruto just laughed and directed their attention to his hands. "Ah, it's because of these babies," he said, showing his black gloves. "My mother was known as the seal mistress and she always wanted a way to be able to use sealing jutsu faster. So she designed this, but unfortunately she couldn't finish it before her death. Since I wanted to follow in her footsteps, I finished it for her," she said proudly. "So what are they?" Sasuke asked as he himself was curious about them now. "They're actually made from seals, my blood, and ink. There's a mini seal written on the fingertips that allows me to weave sealing jutsu hand signs and use them without ink since it comes from the gloves. There's another seal on top of that to harden it so it doesn't just drip off my skin, and one last seal that stores a large amount of ink in a storage seal that draws the ink to keep the gloves formed. Genius, right? They're literally a seal master's best weapon. When I take them off, they're in a stasis seal, so they don't accidentally use ink from the storage space," he told the shocked ninjas at the effects of the gloves. "The only problem is that it takes a year just to make one set, so only for someone dedicated to the art of sealing will I make another pair. Maybe Jiraiya, but I don't know. He's a pervert." That made them take off the gloves, even if they were an amazing weapon for a seal master. They sweat dropped at the part about Jiraiya. They also couldn't say anything because it was true, even though Sasuke and Sakura didn't know his name. With that, they continued on their way to Wave. 2 hours later, as they were near the wave, Sasuke launched a kunai into the bushes, telling Naruto it was time for round 2. "Sasuke-kun, that's just a rabbit," Sakura told Sasuke. Naruto shook his head. "No, Sakura, that was used as a substitute, there are shinobi nearby," he warned her. Everyone tensed up at that. "Get down," Kakashi yelled as he took care of the client while Sasuke tackled Sakura to the ground. Naruto heard a whoosh and knew the damage it would do if it stayed in his hands, so he decided to take the early advantage in the fight. He drew his ninjutsu and turned to face the sword flying towards him. It hit his sword, but that was exactly what he wanted since he would change its direction with the momentum. He placed his palm on the sword and pointed it towards the lake. Unknown to him, he had only marked it with a seal. The sword flew into the lake and landed with a big splash. Everyone heard an annoyed sigh and turned to see a man standing on a tree branch. He had no shirt on and was wearing camouflage pants while bandages were wrapped around his mouth and his headband was tilted with a slash mark. He also has camouflage arm guards. "Kid, why did you have to direct it to the lake?" "Huh, this is going to be annoying now," the man said. Then he stopped and looked at Naruto more closely with narrowed eyes. "Kid, You look like the leaf ninja I once knew. Who's your mother? He asked seriously. Wow, I knew my mother faced all of the 7 ninja warriors during her career, but I didn't know she left such a lasting impression that you could even recognize her son. Naruto said with a smile, while Zabuza became more serious hearing that. So you're the son of the Red Death of Konoha, huh? Hey, that might be fun then, he said, jumping down and landing in the lake across from Naruto as his team appeared around him. Oh no, you leaf ninja, stay out of it. I want to test the boy and see if he's as scary as his mother. I'll even sweeten the deal. You impress me enough and I'll leave the bridge builder alone. Much better to face someone like the Red Death in battle. Zabuza told the ninja. As Kakashi was about to retort, Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. It's okay Kakashi-sensei, I'll deal with it. Besides, this is a good chance to finish another mission. He added quietly so only he would hear. Kakashi nodded and Naruto walked out to the lake. He raised the ninjutsu in front of him in an upside-down position and readied himself. Zabuza had already drawn his sword during their conversation. I am Naruto Uzumaki and I accept your challenge, Zabuza of the Mist. He said seriously. Zabuza placed his sword on his shoulder and raised his hand in a, let's, gesture, and with that they clashed. The lake near Wave Country. The clashing of metal could be heard as the two men were locked in a sword fight. This was the only sound that could be heard for the past 2 minutes. Another clash occurred before either of them spoke. Hey, you're almost as good as your mother with a sword. Considering you're only a freaking genin. Zabuza complimented as he sported several cuts on his body that were bleeding and one severe cut on his body from when he extended the ninjutsu's range with wind chakra. Hey thanks, but I still have a ways to go before I surpass him. Naruto said back as he was cut and showed various slash marks. Zabuza grinned behind his bandages. Well, how about we get a little more serious? He said as he raised his hands ready to start using hand signs. Naruto just grinned and did the same. They both ran away through hand signs and calling out their jutsu. Water style, water dragon jutsu. Zabuza called out, sending a large dragon made of water at Naruto while he called out his jutsu. Earth style, mud wall jutsu. He called out while spitting out mud, raising a wall to block the dragon, and then he jumped over it through more hand gestures. He put his hand under his mouth as if directing something and called out his next jutsu. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. He called out and blew a large blue fireball towards Zabuza, who made his own hand signs, not seeing Naruto's smirk. Water style, water wall jutsu. Zabuza called out just in time as the fireball hit the wall, creating steam. Zabuza had just heard the sound of another jutsu being called and cursed for the distraction. Water style, wild water wave jutsu. Naruto called out and a large wave appeared behind him and crashed towards Zabuza. They all grunted in pain and waited for the steam from earlier to clear. That's when Naruto gasped when he saw Zabuza was still standing, although he looked battered and panting. Kid, no Naruto, you were just as scary as your mother. If I didn't raise another water wall in time I would have died from that. He said as he raised his sword and got ready again. Naruto narrowed her eyes as she just wanted to get this over with, so she held out her hand and gathered chakra into it. Everyone stared at the blue energy ball in her hand. That I mean, how is he? Kakashi stumbled out wide-eyed. You're getting scary, Naruto. Rasengan right now. But that was a close-range jutsu, how do you plan on hitting me with that? He asked. His eyes widened as he was hit in the back with the ball and sent flying into a tree, which he destroyed as he coughed up blood. Just like that, Naruto called out to him standing where he had just hit him. This time the hidden Anbu almost gave away their position from the shock of what he had just done. Kakashi froze in place with wide eyes as he could see it just like the Anbu. Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow as he hit Zabuza in the back with the Rasengan. See, can't believe it. You know, that too, you're a scary kid. Cough cough, when did you mark me? Zabuza asked as he lay on the tree panting. When I pointed your sword at the lake, my hand was on it, that's when I marked you or your sword. He told him. He started walking towards him only for the masked nin to land next to him and disappear a second later, though Naruto knew where they were going, so he made a shadow clone and used the Anbu hand sign to a still shocked Kakashi. Pursued target, ask shadow clone any questions you need, before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. The shadow clone walked over to his team, who were shocked at that. Naruto, how do you know those two jutsu? Kakashi said, the first to break the silence. Naruto hemmed before he answered. Well, the Rasengan was taught to me by Jiraiya, and the Hiraishin I got when I found the notes for it in Jiraiya's sealing scroll. He tried to recreate it but he couldn't and let me figure it out. I figured it out easily, but that's only because Uzumakis are natural fuinjutsu users. Naruto answered. What were those two jutsu, Kakashi-sensei? I couldn't even see Naruto's speed at the last part. Sakura asked while Sasuke listened. Those are the two jutsu that made the fourth Hokage famous. I can't even begin to tell you how inappropriate it was for Jiraiya to let Naruto try them because they are both dangerous if used incorrectly and dangerous to train to use them. Kakashi began to shock Sasuke and Sakura. The rasengan is the pinnacle of pure chakra manipulation and it spins violently and explodes when it hits someone. The second jutsu is even more dangerous and only someone close to the seal master can use it, let alone understand it. The Hiraishin is the jutsu that the fourth Hokage got his nickname from. The yellow flash, it marks a person or object with a seal formula that allows the user to teleport to that location instantly. You can now use it, he explained to his odd students. Sasuke just smirked that his rival was so strong. Oh yeah, he declared him his rival about a week after their formation because he was the only one on his level, him. Sakura began to admire Naruto's strength as he proved that he was stronger than Sasuke. She had vowed to become strong enough so that she could stand beside her teammates. Alright, let's get Tazuna-san home so he can finish his bridge and we can finish this mission, Kakashi said to them as they started to walk him home. With the real Naruto soon after he left. Naruto jumped through the trees towards where he knew Zabuza's last base was. He had hidden his chakra so he didn't alert Haku before he arrived. He remembered Haku saying Gato complained to them last time when Zabuza first lost, so he used this opportunity to attack and complete both missions at the same time. He knew half the Anbu went with him but still shadowed him even though he knew they were there. Landing in a tree, he saw Zabuza's treehouse-like base. He sat there waiting for Gato and he would follow him after he left Zabuza to his base and then go on his mission, since he had to be at his base to use other resources for the diplomat mission. 1 hour later he saw the fat midget with his 2 samurai guards walk into the clearing towards the treehouse-like base. He narrowed his eyes in disgust at the sight. He watched as he sauntered into the building with Gato. He had just entered the base and saw Zabuza bandaged up lying on the couch. He smirked. Well, what do we have here? Getting beat up by a bunch of Zabuza's little kids, he said mockingly. Zabuza growled and pointed his sword at them, making Gato sweat drop. Shut up. They have the son of the Red Death in that squad as well as Kakashi of the Sharingan. There's no way I'm going to beat them alone. Next time Haku joins and we'll finish the contract, you better make sure you're ready to pay or you're dead. Zabuza growled at them, making them scurry away in fear. Zabuza spat at them in disgust. Why did you say that, Zabuza-sama? Even with me there it would be very hard and lucky to beat them, Haku said confused as he continued to heal Zabuza. Because I lied. I have no intention of fighting someone even more terrifying than the Red Death. After my wounds heal in a week I'll go back to the mist and join the rebellion. This was supposed to be our last job before doing so I can support the rebels with the money from this job. I've heard Mei pushed Yagura back, so we're joining her, he told a shocked Haku seriously. I see. Yeah, that guy is truly terrifying and at such a young age, Haku muttered. Well, it is said that Konoha produces the most geniuses, said Zabuza. What he didn't know was that he would meet Naruto again, only on better terms with Naruto. He had just seen Gato exit the base and rush off with his guards, so he decided it was time to act. With a one-hand gesture he muttered, "Henge," under his breath, and all of his clothes turned black along with his hair. He then hid his presence even further and jumped after Gato with 2 Anbu shadowing him. What Naruto didn't know was that the Anbu, despite their mission to shadow him, also had another mission to evaluate his abilities, and so far he had exceeded all expectations. Naruto shadowed Gato for 30 minutes before he managed to reach his base, which was actually the Wave Daimyo's palace. He frowned at the man's audacity to use the Daimyo's palace as his base. As soon as he saw him walk in with his 2 samurai guards, he went to work. The outside was guarded by about 100 guards, all looking around haphazardly. He weaved through hand signs and summoned one of his few genjutsu since he had little interest in the art. Genjutsu, Temple of Nirvana, he said under his breath. White feathers instantly fell from the sky above the guards, knocking them all unconscious in a wide-scale genjutsu. Even the Anbu following him had to use their mastered kai to break it, thus impressing them even further. Once they were all asleep, Naruto jumped out and landed on the roof of the palace. He then used the Kyuubi's negative emotion sensing to find Gato on the 3rd floor in an office while his 2 samurai guards stood outside the door. He released a small amount of the Kyuubi's chakra and wall-walked to a window in the 3rd floor corridor. He opened it and silently stepped inside before closing the window quietly. He created a shadow clone without smoke or hand signs, and the 2 wall-walked to the ceiling using their short stature to their advantage as they silently positioned themselves above the 2 samurai. As one, they drew their tanto before inserting them into their necks while holding their mouths shut to prevent any sound. They carefully laid their bodies down and arranged them to where each other's swords were stuck into their necks for the setup he had planned. He and his shadow clone then transformed into their samurai forms. Walking to the door they entered. "Hey boss, you gotta see this. This guy found a huge stash of Ryo on this guy outside." One of the samurai said in his cocky voice as he pointed to the other. In the office sitting in a chair behind a desk, Gato growled. What? Did someone think they could rob me? He yelled as he got up. Yeah, damn idiot, we tied him up outside. The samurai said in his same tone. Gato smirked and walked over to the samurai, and as soon as he passed him he found his head ripped off his body. Naruto was unfazed at the moment. He stabbed the body a few times to make it look careless as his clone sealed his head in a scroll. He then took out a rock he got from outside and used his special henge to make it into a solid copy of Gato's head and placed it next to his body and rolled it up a bit to make it look like it rolled over naturally if it did. He and his clones then dragged the two dead samurai and placed them in front of the large safe in the room and made it look like they killed Gato and then killed each other to see who got the money. Once done, he walked over to the safe and thought about what to do. He couldn't tamper with it as his cover story wouldn't work then. He summoned a shadow clone and rummaged through the desk for the code before facing his palm and remembering he released magnet. Walking over to the safe, he used his magnet style to direct the key in until he heard a click. The safe opened to reveal a large amount of ryo. He sealed it all in 2 scrolls before sealing the scrolls on himself. He then closed the safe and used his magnet style again to move the key and to lock it. His shadow clone had found a piece of paper with the code and he burned it so no one could open the safe without difficulty. Once his mission was complete, he got up and left the building the same way he entered. Once he was far enough away, he let his henge fall and the orange part of his clothes and blonde hair returned. The Anbu at this point were salivating to have him in their ranks. This guy was a genius. Not only was he a master of stealthy and efficient assassinations, he left evidence to make it look like he was killed by his own men for money. Oh yeah, they wanted him badly. Naruto pondered whether he should wait until tomorrow to confront Zabuza, but he figured it was better now and get it done tonight. With that, he leapt towards Zabuza's base and arrived there in 5 minutes. He still hid his chakra as he didn't want to startle them any more than he already did. He sensed their chakra at the highest point on the left side, so he just walked up to that part of the wall. Reaching the window, he peeked in to see Zabuza covered in bandages on the couch with Haku hovering over him using whatever medical treatment he could while Zabuza grumbled at him. Deciding to get the hardest part of the mission over with, he knocked on the window frame, making the two snap their heads towards him and stiffen at the sight. Raising his hands in surrender, he smiled at them. Haha, no need to be tense, I come in peace, he said. Haku pulled out his senbon and prepared to attack before Zabuza stopped him. Oh, and how can we trust you? He said. Just then he pulled out 2 scrolls. Because I have proof your master Gato will betray you and I am helping you, he said as he threw Haku one of the scrolls as Naruto just sat on the window frame nonchalantly. Haku caught the scroll and read its contents, raising an eyebrow. Zabuza-sama, this is Gato's handwriting saying he won't pay us at all and that he has a contract with the Kiri Hunter Nin to deliver your body to them if he manages to kill you, he said, panting, making Zabuza's eyes narrow in anger. Okay Naruto, thank you for the proof, but how do you help us? He asked. Just then Naruto opened another scroll he had and unsealed it, revealing Gato's head to them. TCH, that was fast. You're scarier than your mother. While I appreciate she's dead, I don't see how that helps us since I can do it myself, he said as Naruto sealed his head again before sealing the scroll. He then unsealed another scroll and threw it at Haku. Haku caught it and unsealed it on top of the pile of ryo, making both his and Zabuza's eyes widen. That's definitely more than he'll pay you, so consider your contract to kill the bridge builder done. Now I must ask, what are your plans now? He asked, using subtle manipulation to guide the conversation to the area he needed. We will return to Kiri once I am healed and join the rebellion, Zabuza said as he looked at him warily, wondering why he wanted to know that. Then can you pass on a message for me to the leader of the rebellion? He said, unsealing another scroll and tossing it directly to Zabuza this time, who caught it and read it. I'm not sure what the scroll says other than Hokage-sama himself wrote it and that we support the rebellion, Naruto said, raising an eyebrow at Zabuza's smirk. Hey, as you said, stating that Konoha will rebel again and having information that Konoha spies have Yagura and his forces. Hey, with this we can definitely win, he said, not mentioning how much information or what information he had. It's also a formal request to ally with our village if the rebels win. Kid, you can be manipulative, you know that. You never meant to kill me in the first place and I'm sure you knew I would be here. This is a diplomatic mission for you, isn't it? He said, smirking at the smiling boy. Who knows? I was only following orders from Hokage-sama. Well, if that's all, I can go now, Naruto said, turning to leave before Zabuza told him one last thing. Son, I'll help you, so don't be surprised when your fame precedes you when your enemies meet you on the battlefield, he said mysteriously, making Naruto raise an eyebrow before he shrugged and jumped away. Haku sighed in relief at that. The man scared him. Naruto sighed in relief as he arrived at Tazuna's house and went to his shadow clone's room before emerging, and he received a memory of his team's arrival and everything went the same as last time until Inari said they were going to die before walking away. He laid down on his bed and was out like a light. The next morning, Naruto woke up to the sound of a group of cheering voices outside the house. He groggily got up and went down the stairs to see what was going on. Down the stairs he saw his team sitting at a table alone. "What's going on?" he asked them. "The Wave people are celebrating since news of Gato's death by his own men who wanted the money themselves reached the city this morning. Now that they're free, they're celebrating," Kakashi told him with an ice smile as he sat down. "Oh, that's good for them then," Naruto said. He noticed the knowing look he received from Kakashi and signaled he would tell him later. "Well, now all we have to do is wait for the bridge to finish and this mission will be a success. Team 7's first A-rank mission and we completed it without any injuries." Kakashi's eyes smiled at them. Sasuke smirked hearing this while Sakura smiled. "Since we have free time, Sakura, you should go and practice the first step of earth manipulation, you too Sasuke with lightning. Naruto, you stay here so we can discuss what you should work on now." Sasuke and Sakura nodded before leaving the house to train. "Alright, now we are alone, how were the missions?" Kakashi asked. "Both were successful. I sealed Gato's head in a scroll and made it look like he was killed by his own men out of greed. Zabuza has agreed to join the rebellion and give the scroll to Hokage-sama," he said to her. "I see, that's good. I'm surprised you were able to complete both missions in the same night. I suspected Zabuza would take longer," Kakashi told her. "He was already planning to leave and join the rebellion and I just used the situation to my advantage," he told her. She nodded at that. "I see, well, we should go and train for later, might as well use this time wisely," Kakashi said to her and she nodded. 1 week later. The bridge was finished faster due to the new force, more workers and Naruto's shadow clones. So here they were seeing Tazuna off. "I will never forget how much the Leaf Village helped us. I hope the scroll containing the new payment issue will please your Hokage." "Thank you, Team 7, Tazuna said to them with a smile and a bow. "Mama, I'm sure everything will be fine. Thank you for choosing Konoha. See you later." Kakashi waved goodbye to them as he and his team headed back to the Leaf Village at ninja speed now that they had no civilians. Once they were gone, someone asked what they were going to name the bridge. "The Bridge of Hope, to signify new hope that the waves will lead to brighter times," he said, and they all nodded. 4 hours later they arrived back at the Leaf Village. Walking towards the Hokage Tower, the team noticed the looks of respect and admiration being sent Naruto's way as they walked. Awe from the civilians and respect from the shinobi. This confused them as they looked at him and he shrugged. They would get their answer when they reached the Hokage's office. As they entered they noticed that when he saw them he smiled, but when he saw Naruto he had an amused smirk on his face. This made Naruto narrow his eyes suspiciously. "Ah, Team 7, it's good to see you back. Report in," said the Hokage. At that time Kakashi saluted along with his team. Mission successful, but there were complications. The client lied about the difficulty of the mission and it turns out he lost his nin after him. We first encountered the Demon Brothers of the Mist and made quick work of them. At that point we questioned the client and he said that Gato had hired the missing nin to get him, and not wanting Konoha to look bad I said we continue the mission. Just before we arrived at Wave we encountered Zabuza Momochi, the Demon of the Mist. Once again he was defeated and escaped through his henchmen. The next day Gato was reported dead by his own men and nothing interesting happened after that as Zabuza never showed up again. Kakashi reported. I understand, with this I will raise the mission rank to a rank. You will pay accordingly and add it to your records," the Hokage told them. Team 7 is dismissed. Naruto and Kakashi, please stay behind. Sasuke and Sakura shrugged before walking out. "What about the other missions, Naruto-kun?" Hiruzen asked him directly. Hearing this, Naruto handed him the scroll with Gato's head. "Both are successful, Hokage-samas. I killed Gato on the first night and left evidence to make it look like his own men did it without leaving any evidence of myself. The diplomat mission was easy too. Zabuza was already planning to join the rebellion. After paying what Gato planned with interest that would be used for the rebellion efforts, I convinced him to give the scroll to the leader and you will soon have a response," he reported. She nodded proudly at his skills. "I knew you would be paid for the extra A rank and B rank missions and they added you to note the good work, Naruto-kun," she said with a smile at him which made Naruto beam. "Thank you, Gigi. Now do you know why everyone was staring at me when I entered the village?" Naruto asked, confused. Hearing that, Hiruzen's amused smirk came back into play. "Well, it seems you left a lasting impression on Zabuza. Look at this, page 159, he said to him as he handed him a small black book which made Kakashi widen his eyes. "That's," Kakashi stuttered. "A bingo book." Naruto finished for him as he opened the page Gigi told him to find. Once he found it, he couldn't help but widen his eyes. On the page was a picture of himself with some information about himself. Bingo book page 159. Name: Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki, Konoha's Red Death. Age: 12. Rank: A+. Alias: Konoha Yellow Death. Known natures: wind, earth, fire, water. Kekkei Genkei, boiling release. Skills: Ninjutsu, A+. Taijutsu, A. Genjutsu, unknown. Kenjutsu, S. Fuinjutsu, S. Defeated: Gozu and Maizu, Demon Brothers of Mist, B-rank Ninja of Mist. Defeated: Zabuza Momochi, Demon of the Mist, rank Ninja of Mist, member of the Seven Swordsmen. Approach with extreme caution. Well, at least he didn't mention the Hiraishin or Rasengan. Naruto muttered, making Hiruzen choke on his own spit. Naruto, was it really necessary to use those two jutsu? Hiruzen asked with a sigh. I wanted to end the fight really quickly. At least he didn't tell anyone. Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Hiruzen rubbed his head. I'm glad he did. With your looks it wouldn't take long for someone to connect the dots if you used those two jutsu. He sighed. Don't worry Gigi, even if I get out I'll be the light of Konoha. He said cheerfully, making Hiruzen confused on what he meant before he explained. At this point Kakashi connected the dots of what he knew about his father and just stared in shock. That way our other shinobi can work from the shadows for the betterment of the village. She finished, surprising him at how mature she was about such a thing. I understand, I won't forbid you from using jutsu, but please don't show it off, our relationship with Iwa is already strained enough. She told him, and he nodded. Alright, now Naruto-kun, please come back tomorrow as we have some other things to discuss. Team 7 is on 1-week break to rest. Dismissed. Naruto saluted and Kakashi left the office. Anbu report, he said after they left, and instantly 4 Anbu appeared kneeling on the floor. The demon brothers were freed by us and told to join the rebellion, which they did. 2 hours later they met Zabuza, and Naruto used his recognition of his mother's skills to engage him in a one-on-one kenjutsu match where they were evenly matched by Naruto using wind chakra to increase the range of his sword. The Anbu squad leader began to explain before taking a breath and letting the other members take over. Hiruzen was shocked at the fact that he had enough chakra control to actually use genjutsu as a Jinchuriki and Uzumaki. We even had trouble staying awake from the power and had to defeat Kai. He then jumped onto the roof of the building and used his sensor abilities to find Gato before stealthily entering the building. He then flawlessly killed his 2 main guards before making it look like they killed each other to our initial confusion before he tied them up with his shadow clones and made his way to Gato's office and convinced him to check something before he removed Gato's head. The second Anbu said before continuing. He then jumped onto the roof of the building and used his sensor abilities to find Gato before stealthily entering the building. He then flawlessly killed his 2 main guards before making it look like they killed each other to our initial confusion before he tied them up with his shadow clones and made his way to Gato's office and convinced him to check something before he removed Gato's head. The second Anbu said before continuing. He then jumped onto the roof of the building and used his sensor abilities to find Gato before stealthily entering the building. He then flawlessly killed his 2 main guards before making it look like they killed each other to our initial confusion before he tied them up with his shadow clones and made his way to Gato's office and convinced him to check something before he removed Gato's head. The second Anbu said before continuing. He then made it look like his guards killed him and turned the rock into Gato's head with a physical henge he could use and made the guards look like they killed each other for the money in the safe. We're not sure how he opened the safe without the code and locked it again, but he burned the code and left. After that it was easy for him to convince Zabuza like he said before. He finished. I see, Hiruzen said as he pondered all of this. So what's your assessment of him? He asked his Anbu. Honestly, he shouldn't even be a genin, he's on par with a jonin and has the perfect skills to be an Anbu Hokage-sama. The squad leader said honestly. The Chunin exams are in a week, so I'll have him participate in them. He'll be promoted either way, but this is a good way to make Konoha look good with him in the exams. Alright, you're dismissed, Hiruzen said. The Anbu avoided him. The Chunin exam, Naruto said it was a big event and that's what he and I will talk about tomorrow. I wonder how things will be different from his timeline this time, he mused as he stared at the Hokage monument. The next morning, Hokage's office. Alright Naruto, what do I need to know about the Chunin exam? Hiruzen asked him as he arrived that morning. Many Gigi, because this was the beginning of many things that went wrong. Orochimaru killed the Kazekage, and when the finals came he showed up disguised as him and tricked Suna into attacking us. He was also the leader of a new village called Oto and they joined Suna to attack us. We managed to win, but not at a great cost. During the second exam he infiltrated the Forest of Death and marked Sasuke with a cursed seal, causing Sasuke to defect 6 months later to him. Also during the invasion you faced him alone and he used Edo Tensei to revive the first 2 Hokage, which you then had to fight all 3 of them. All 3 combined to be powerful for you, so you had to use the Reaper Death Seal to seal them away. Along with Orochimaru's arm you died after that. Oi also lost Gekko Hayate when he tried to tail the spy Orochimaru had in Konoha. Naruto told him in a serious mode. Hiruzen seemed to have aged 10 years at the discussion after hearing all the things his former student had done. I see. That's some smart news. Okay, first off, who was the spy? Hiruzen asked, wanting to nip that bud in the bud first. His name is Kabuto Yakushi, he works at the hospital and pretends to be a genin. He will be taking the Chunin exams but will lose before the 3rd task. So have Jiraiya follow him when he loses, we can't afford to lose our swordsman. Naruto said, and Hiruzen agreed with his logic. The only other thing we should change is that you don't fight Orochimaru alone. He attacked during the 3rd task in the middle of Sasuke and Gaara's match. I can handle him in the Forest of Death and prevent him from marking Sasuke this time. You should also use this opportunity to retire Gigi and choose a replacement. Last time me and Jiraiya had to go and get Tsunade for the position. Also, since the council can make the decision for promotions, only Shikamaru gets promoted even if I make it to the finals and fight an unstable Jinchuriki. Naruto said to him before he cursed himself at Hiruzen's curious look on why the council would prevent Naruto's promotion. Ahaha, I meant to not say anything about this, but the first time you didn't make me a secret Jinchuriki, so I was hated in the village until I saved everyone from Nagato. Naruto said, laughing at him while feeling bad at Hiruzen's guilty look. It's okay though now, Gigi, I'm very happy in this timeline. Naruto said with a bright smile. I see. Your capacity for love and forgiveness is truly amazing, Naruto. Alright, I'll make preparations so we won't get caught this time. Hiruzen said. Naruto nodded. They spent another 2 hours going over the more complicated parts of preventing the invasion from causing too much damage before they ended their meeting. Oh, Kakashi should be giving you guys your papers tomorrow, so expect that. Hiruzen said as Naruto left. Naruto nodded as he closed the door. The next morning at Training Ground 7. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all had just arrived at the training ground and saw Kakashi waiting for them. They had gotten used to him no longer being late since he was taking his team seriously now. Alright team, I called you here today because I have something for you. Kakashi said as he took out 3 sheets of paper and handed them to his students. Chunin exams? Sakura asked. That's right, at the end of our break this weekend the Chunin exams will be taking place. I have nominated you 3 for them because I feel you are ready. He said with an eye smile. Naruto cheered in excitement while Sasuke smirked. Sakura would have been intimidated if it wasn't for the intense training she had been going through lately to at least try to catch up to Naruto and Sasuke. Her earth style was going pretty well and she added genjutsu to her repertoire as well because of her chakra control. If she became Chunin she would have the opportunity to work at the hospital to become a med nin. Fill out your forms and turn them into the academy by the end of the week if you are participating. You have the rest of the week off, good luck. With that he appeared in his usual style. I guess I will see you guys at the academy then. Naruto said with a smile. TCH, can't let you surpass me. Sasuke said with a grin, waving as he walked away. See you later. I'm going to the library to see if I can find any more genjutsu. Sakura said as she left. Naruto nodded at them as he turned and left. He knew it would be different this time, but he didn't expect the changes to already be taking place. He was already respected by the village for his nickname, and now he realized that Sakura and Konohamaru didn't see each other this time because he had never met him. He forgot to meet the boy this time. He wondered if he would meet the Sand siblings differently this time too. Just then he heard a child's punch and scream while a man sounded upset. Guess even with changes some things will stay the same. Naruto mused as he turned into an alley to see Konohamaru being held down by his clothes by Kankuro like last time and with his sister behind him trying to stop him. He noticed one major change that he didn't expect. Gaara was up in a tree like last time looking on with emotionless eyes, except, he looked different. He had long wavy red hair, a beautiful face and soft-looking skin. He wore a long one-sleeved red coat that showed the mesh shirt he wore from the fact that his right shoulder was exposed. Her red coat went down to her ankles but was open in front of her waist, revealing a gray mini skirt. She had red boots with black laces. His high 8 was around her stomach. She still had her gourd strapped to her back. It was at this point that Naruto confirmed that he was in a parallel dimension. Gaara was a girl here. Still he couldn't deny that she looked beautiful. He decided to stop staring and face Kankuro. Excuse me, Sand Ninja. Naruto called out for Kankuro and Temari to look at him. Yes, what do you want? Kankuro said. While you are allowed to be here because of the Chunin exams, that doesn't give you permission to attack the Hokage's grandson. Naruto said calmly with his hands in his pockets. Kankuro paled and immediately dropped Konohamaru, who stared at Naruto in awe before he ran to hide behind him. Kankuro, you idiot, we could be disqualified for that. Temari scolded. Temari is right, a cold voice stated, making Temari and Kankuro freeze. Gee, Gaara, what's wrong? Kankuro stuttered nervously. You're bringing shame to the village. Let's go, Gaara said. Kankuro and Temari nodded and walked towards him before he turned to look at Naruto. What's your name? Gaara asked. Naruto Uzumaki. What's yours? Naruto said. He saw the others turn pale as they realized who they were meeting, while Gaara smiled evilly for a moment before it disappeared. I am Gaara of the Sand. Mother wants your blood, I look forward to fighting you. With that he left while Temari and Kankuro left. Naruto gasped when he heard that, and it made him remember something big that he missed and forgot all about. He jumped up onto the roof and went home as fast as he could to go into his mindscape to finish it. He arrived at his house and quickly went to his bed and sat down in a meditation position before he found himself in the expanse of his white mindscape. He thought about changing it in the future for the Bijuu, but right now he had bigger problems. He saw all the Bijuu in a circle around him as they had already sensed his presence. He looked at them and spoke. I can't believe I forgot about this, but what about the other Bijuu that are in this dimension? Naruto asked. Oh, they're still there with their original hosts. This dimension basically has twins now. Kurama explained. What about you, Kurama? There's only one of you with me, Naruto said, looking confused. She assimilated me when we first got here. The same thing would happen if you reabsorbed us all, we would just assimilate into our older forms, though only in 3 years. Kurama explained. I see, so the Akatsuki will still be a big problem since they can still capture the Bijuu. Naruto muttered as he sat down. You don't have to worry about that for another 3 years, Naruto. Remember, they have to go with the tailed beast and will attack Gaara in 3 years. Matabi told him. I guess so, Naruto said. There's some good you can do now, Naruto. Fu is here in the Chunin exams too. She went unnoticed because her team failed in the Forest of Death when her teammates were killed by a giant spider. Her village blamed her and was an outcast. She lived in the wild after that for 3 years, hating humans, and was easily captured by the Akatsuki because of it. So I suggest you do my previous host a favor and convince Hiruzen to let her into the village. You can tell she'll be targeted by the leader of Tokigakure and that sniveling man will easily let her go. Chome said. I will help her as best I can, Naruto stated to Chome. Remember well from the war when she was reincarnated, she was the green-haired Jinchuriki. Find her and help her in the Forest of Death. To make it easier, you should let his teammates die again because they are also terrible and bullied him. Chome said. Naruto nodded. Okay, before I go, do you guys want me to let you control them so you can change things to your liking in here? Naruto asked. Oh, thank goodness. All this white is annoying, Matabi complained. Naruto just nodded and gave them free rein as he disappeared. Once outside his mindscape, Naruto decided to go to sleep. Academy 6 days later. Naruto arrived in front of the building and found his teammates waiting for him. He nodded to them and the 3 walked inside, the 3 giving the Chunin officer their forms outside before entering. Inside were many teams but ignored them and went upstairs. Once they reached the next level, they saw in confusion a group of teams arguing about trying to get into a classroom that said 301 on it. Only Naruto knew what was going on at first. There's a genjutsu on the door. Let's ignore it and go to the next level. That'll get rid of the idiots, Naruto whispered to his teammates, who noticed the genjutsu as well. They nodded and followed him upstairs. They never realized that they were being watched by a genin in green spandex. That must be Sasuke Uchiha and the other is Naruto Uzumaki. I can't wait to challenge those two, thought the genin as he watched them climb the stairs. He then decided that his team should head out. With Team 7. They had just reached the 3rd floor when they saw their sensei waiting for them. Sensei, what are you doing here? Sakura asked when she saw him. Oh, you 3 are here. Her eyes smiled, seeing their confusion, well except for Naruto, who she suspected was getting some extra information from the Hokage. She explained. If you 3 don't show up, you won't be able to advance. This is a team exam and requires all of your team members, she told the shocked genin. Well, good luck to you 3, Kakashi said as he left. Let's do this, Team 7, Naruto said, putting his fist in the middle of them. Sakura cheered as she bumped her fist while Sasuke smirked and did as well. With that they walked into the exam room. They soon noticed all the glares directed at them, trying to intimidate them. Naruto and Sasuke just ignored it while Sakura was slightly affected but joined her teammates to walk to another area. Naruto-kun, said a purple flying bullet as it hit Naruto. Naruto's sweat dropped at this strange change in the timeline. So she's my fangirl now, not Sasuke's, he thought. Ino's teammates Shikamaru and Choji walked over to join Team 7 as well. What dragged you guys into this too? Shikamaru sighed. Yahoo, you're here too, said a loud annoying voice. Oh hey Kiba, so all the newbies are here, Naruto said seeing him and his team join them. Well, it makes sense that our sensei would try to give us more experience with these kinds of tests than we actually pass, Shino said pushing his glasses. Yeah, that sounds like something they would do, Shikamaru said agreeing with him. Whatever, me and my team will pass this with ease, Kiba boasted. You guys should keep it. A voice interrupted them. They all turned to see a silver-haired genin who looked older than them and was wearing purple and white. Naruto tensed up to kill the man in front of him but held it in since he had to wait for his chance. Who are you? Sakura asked suspiciously. The man pushed his glasses before he answered. My name is Kabuto Yakushi and I guess you can call me your senpai in this exam, he said. So you did this test before? Sakura asked. Yeah, I've participated 7 times, she said. Wow, you must suck, Kiba laughed. Kabuto's eye twitched but he just smiled and replied. Well, that's why I have these, he said as he pulled out a stack of cards. What are they? Shikamaru asked curiously. These cards hold information on all the genin I've met over the years of doing these tests. I even have information on all of you, Kabuto said. Oh yeah, prove it, Kiba said. Okay, I'll show you the most famous info from your group, he said, and Naruto tensed. Kabuto pulled out a card and poured some chakra into it. Naruto Uzumaki Konoha Yellow Death. So far he has completed 20 D rank missions and my 1 D rank and 2 A rank missions. It says his specialties are ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, and kenjutsu, Kabuto said to the shocked room. Naruto's teammates looked at him with raised eyebrows at the extra missions. He signed to them, we'll explain later. Naruto had started teaching them Anbu hand signals to be more stealthy on missions that required silence. Meanwhile, the other rookies looked at Naruto with respect and jealousy in Kiba's place. How do you know that? I've never taken an exam before and my mission stats are supposed to be kept secret, Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow at him. Kabuto just smiled and laughed nervously. Ahaha, I work in the village archives. I should regroup with my team now as I can see this is about to start, Kabuto quickly explained before walking back to his teammates. As he left, Naruto scanned the room. He found Orochimaru staring hungrily at Sasuke and ignored him, looking elsewhere. He saw the Sand siblings and saw Gaara eyeing him. He looked at the crowd of genin before he saw mint green hair. Finally seeing who he was looking for, he looked at her. She had short mint green hair and tan skin, impressive orange eyes, and had a cheerful smile on her face, but he knew it was fake as she used to look like that. He saw that she was wearing a white top that stopped below her breasts and was sleeveless. She had a fishnet top underneath that hung further than her top. She wore white sleeves on her arms that were not connected to her shirt. She had a white skirt with fishnet shorts visible underneath. She also had white ninja sandals. The most noticeable thing about her was the red tube that was strapped to her back. He knew it contained insects that she could control since she was the Chome Jinchuriki. He would watch over her so he could save her like he promised Chome. As he scouted the competition, he saw their instructor coming in more peacefully this time since Kabuto didn't have the chance to insult the Sound Village. Alright, shut up. I'm the first exam proctor Morino Ibiki. Now line up and take a number while I explain the first exam, he said. Naruto ignored the explanation of the rules since he already knew, but he made sure to pick a different number this time to see where he was going. As luck would have it, he ended up between Fu and a few mist genin who looked intimidated to sit next to him. She did have a reputation in the mist at this point, so he wasn't surprised. Deciding to see what her personality was like, Naruto turned to Fu with a smile. Good luck with the exam, he said to her. She smiled back. Thanks, and you too, she said, smiling brightly. When Ibiki said start, Naruto decided to see how her information gathering skills were. He had a plan but couldn't do it until they were 20 minutes in. So he put his hand on his cheek and looked like he was really bored. This caused Kakashi, who was inside the Jonin realm watching the exam, to fall face down while the other Jonin chuckled. 20 minutes later, Naruto released something from his hand, which was a smoke bomb. They exploded, and as everyone coughed in the smoke, Naruto copied the answers to the fake genin test and sat back down. The smoke was cleared by a gust of wind by an annoyed Ibiki who looked around the room for the person who did it. He saw the Uzumaki boy looking bored, but he could see him smirking slightly. Clever kid, causing a distraction and taking information while everyone is distracted, he thought, smirking. 10 minutes, Ibiki called out. The scribbling on some papers became more frantic by the moment. Alright, now for the last question. You have a choice if you want to take it or not, Ibiki said to the genin. Why don't we take the question? Temari called out. Because. Ibiki started to smirk. If any of you make a mistake, your entire team will be disqualified from participating in the Chunin exams again, he said, causing a loud protest. Shut up, you're just unlucky to have me as a proctor. Now raise your hands if you don't want to answer the question so we can make a list of which teams failed, he said, crossing his arms. At this point some of the teams started to stop. Naruto just stood there with a bored expression on his face. Sakura saw her teammates looking confident, not even thinking of raising their hands. Since Naruto didn't make an explosion this time, more teams stopped out of confidence. This left about 20 genin teams sitting there. Is that all? Ibiki questioned, looking stern. Seeing no one else move, he nodded. Good, then you all pass, he said. What? Most of the genin shouted. The world isn't all sunshine and daisies brats. This test is designed to test your information gathering skills. All around the room there are Chunin disguised as genin. We need to see if you have the guts to become Chunin, Ibiki said, taking off his bandana, showing off his scar. At that moment a pair of kunai flashed into the room and stuck into the wall, unrolling a banner that read, "The sexy and single Anko Mitarashi has arrived." A black ball entered the room, exploding into the shape of Anko and herself scantily clad. Alright brats, the second test begins now, Anko said, looking at them all. Damn, only 20 teams left. Good job Ibiki, but I'll cut it in half, he said, smirking. Follow me to your next location for the exam, she ordered, and jumped out the window. Naruto and his team were the first to follow her, which caused all the other genin teams to follow them. Training Ground 44. Alright brats, welcome to the Forest of Death, Anko said, dramatically pointing to the large forest that was behind her. This will be the location of the second exam. For this exam you will receive one of 2 scrolls marked Heaven and Earth respectively, she said, taking one of each scroll. Your goal is to get a partner to your scroll through any means necessary and then find your way to the tower in the middle of the forest. I will be splitting it evenly, 10 Earth scrolls to your half and 10 Heaven scrolls to the other half, forcing your numbers to drop by half no matter what. She continued to the wary genin who were staring at each other. Not that there will be 10 teams finishing, as this forest is dangerous and filled with poisonous plants and countless large animals. Plus you will be there for 5 days, which is the time limit for this exam, she explained to them. What are we going to do for food? Choji exclaimed. Anko rolled her eyes. You'll catch it yourself and take care of yourself, she said, smirking. Can the team get out after entering? Shikamaru asked. No, once you're in there you stay until the time limit is up. Therefore, you all have to sign a waiver, as the Leaf Village is not responsible for your deaths, she said as she pulled out a stack of papers. By now many of the genin present were completely intimidated. They all lined up in booths around the training grounds to sign their forms and receive their scrolls. Naruto's team received the Heaven scroll and Naruto sealed it to himself. The line in front of the gate was ready to begin. Before it began, Naruto turned to his team. Okay, once we're in, I'll send clones to scout the other teams and maybe get the Earth scroll, Naruto told them, and they nodded. Begin, Anko shouted, ringing the bell and opening the gate. All of the genin flew into the forest at that moment. As soon as they entered the forest, Naruto created 30 shadow clones, taking no chances. He sent 5 of them in the direction he knew Fu's team was to keep an eye on them. After that he and his team headed north. 30 minutes later they stopped on a tree branch and saw a team of Aim Nin looking like they were planning something. Sakura was about to throw a shuriken at them before Sasuke stopped her. Wait, that's a bunchin. The real one is hiding in the bushes to the left, Sasuke whispered to her while pointing to where the real 3 were hiding while activating his Sharingan. Sakura nodded and aimed for it while Sasuke prepared a jutsu with Naruto, both in sync with what they wanted to do. Sakura launched the shuriken into the bushes and the 3 bunchin disappeared as 3 genin emerged from the bushes, 2 of them with shuriken impaled on their legs while the other ran away. The 2 that were impaled cursed while the 3 huddled with their backs together looking for their ambusher. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu, Sasuke called out, sending 5 fireballs straight at the genin, making themselves easier targets. Wind style, Great Breakthrough, Naruto called out a second later, greatly empowering the fire, making them large enough to dodge, and the 3 genin were hit by the explosion. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura fell with their weapons drawn just in case. They didn't have to bother because after the smoke was blown away by Naruto it revealed the 3 genin were unconscious since they didn't need to kill them. Sakura searched them and found the Heaven scroll, which disappointed them. She asked them what they wanted to do and Sasuke and Naruto said to burn it to get rid of the competition. She threw it to Sasuke, who did it with a low-level Kaden jutsu. With that they went back to the trees and continued on their way. 1 hour later Naruto felt a large gathering of chakra. Get down and hang on the trees with your chakra, Naruto shouted as he did some hand signs when he felt it coming. Sasuke and Sakura fell to grab onto the tree they were on when he said that. Great breakthrough wind style. Naruto called out, sending a large wave of wind in the same jutsu towards them. The one heading towards them was defeated and blew away Naruto's haste jutsu. It did stop long enough for the three to get a good footing so as not to get blown away. Once it was done, the three genin stood up looking for who did that. Kukuku, that was a good reaction, Naruto-kun. A cold voice said right behind the three. They circled around with their weapons drawn ready to fight. Kukuku, that was a good reaction, Naruto-kun. A cold voice said to them right behind them. The three of them circled around, weapons drawn ready to fight. The sight that greeted them was a feminine-looking grass ninja. Orochimaru. Naruto said with disgust. Sakura and Sasuke looked at Naruto in surprise as he recognized the ninja. Oh, so you already know who I am, huh? Kukukuku. Orochimaru chuckled as he ripped off the ninja face he was wearing, since he wouldn't need to hide if they knew him, much to the disgust of Team 7. It revealed a man with fair skin and purple eye markings resembling fangs along with yellow eye slits. He had long black hair as well. Yes, Orochimaru, belonging to the Sannin and an S-class missing nin from the Leaf Village. Naruto replied. Orochimaru kept a smirk on his face as Naruto said all this. Well, since you already know who I am, why don't we have some fun? If you can defeat me, I'll give you this earth scroll I have. Orochimaru said, taking out the scroll that Team 7 needed. Sasuke and Sakura were intimidated knowing who they were facing and wondering what they should do. Naruto just narrowed his eyes as he stayed silent. Orochimaru opened his mouth wide and was about to swallow the scroll before he felt a fist hit his stomach, sending him flying into a tree. Coughing, he got up and saw Naruto sealing the scroll he was about to swallow. How did he move so fast? I didn't even feel him. Orochimaru thought angrily. Then he noticed Naruto's eyes were different. They were gold with bars as pupils and he had orange pigmentation around his eyelids. How wise. How could someone so young achieve something like that? That still doesn't explain the speed he moves too. Orochimaru thought. Kukuku, already a sage at your age, Naruto-kun. I guess I should take you more seriously. Orochimaru said with a chuckle as he spat out the kusanagi. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he unsheathed his tanto. He coated the blade with wind chakra, knowing the abilities of the kusanagi. Sasuke, Sakura, provide ranged support, I'll fight him head on. Naruto said before he charged forward at Orochimaru and they clashed swords. They were at a stalemate and jumped back. Naruto went through one-handed hand signs, much to Orochimaru's surprise. Sage art. Lava style. Magma flow. Naruto called out and he spewed a wave of lava at Orochimaru. Orochimaru read the hand signs and countered. Water style. Wild water shockwave. Orochimaru called out, blasting a large wave of water at magma to cool it down. Seeing that wasn't going to be enough, he raised a quick earth wall. Damn, he can even augment his jutsu with that. Orochimaru cursed in his head. Feeling the killing intent behind him, he turned just in time to block Naruto's wind chakra-coated tanto. Falling from where he had smashed, Orochimaru spewed another body from his own mouth using his own jutsu. I can only do that one more time before I have almost no chakra left. That brat is way stronger than a genin. Orochimaru mused as he got up and looked up just in time to see Naruto cast a jutsu he had never seen before. It resembled a rasengan but was white and shaped like a shuriken. It sounded like a bunch of blades screeching against each other. Orochimaru tried to jump away, but as it got closer to him, Naruto smirked. Expand. Naruto called out and grew to a large size and collided with Orochimaru. Ah! Orochimaru screamed as it sent him flying while ripping his stomach apart at the point of contact. It then exploded with him inside it and it felt like millions of microscopic blades were tearing him apart. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. Naruto said, seeing the original move explode. As it finished, Orochimaru's body fell from the sky and landed on a tree branch. A hand came out of his mouth and then another Orochimaru appeared, looking weak and out of breath. You brat. Haha, don't think you win here. Orochimaru said, panting. He bit his thumb to draw blood and went through hand signs. Summoning jutsu. Orochimaru called out and a large puff of smoke appeared before a white snake came out of it towards Naruto, and Orochimaru turned towards Sasuke and extended his neck and approached Sasuke at a speed fast for him to react. Just as he was about to bite Sasuke's neck, he felt something hit his stomach and sent his body flying along with his elongated head. He looked down to see Naruto hit by his fist in the stomach, which was coated with nature chakra. Orochimaru vomits blood and he is sent flying through the forest and curses Naruto. After Orochimaru left, Naruto jumped back to his stunned teammates. Come on guys, we should head to the tower, I don't want to be here when he gets back. Naruto told them and they nodded and followed Naruto since he seemed to know where he was going. Sasuke and Sakura couldn't believe their eyes. Their genin teammates had just faced off against the Sannin. They were starting to realize that they knew absolutely nothing about him since he didn't attend the academy. Sasuke was determined to get Naruto to help him train after what he had just witnessed. If he could get as strong as Naruto, then he could eventually kill his brother. It took them another 5 hours of tree jumping before they finally reached the tower in the middle of the forest. Once inside, they read a plaque that had a hidden meaning that told them to open both of their scrolls at the same time. Smoke billowed from them before their academy instructor Iruka appeared. He then told them that he was proud of them for coming this far and that the final exam would be at the end of the 5-day period of the second exam and that they could use the room in the tower where they were resting. The three then headed to their room, and once inside, Sasuke and Sakura crashed into their bed as Naruto laid down on his. He then felt his shadow clone that was shadowing Team Fu disappear, and the memory made him blush. Flashback no Jutsu. SC Shadow Clone. Naruto finally found Team Fu to see the three of them setting up a camp scene. Well, more like Fu was setting up a camp scene as her two teammates were just sitting there lazily and glaring at her. SC Naruto was saddened to see this, which is why he didn't say anything as he saw the vines that were crawling towards Fu's teammates. Fu heard her asshole teammates start screaming and turned around just in time to see them being eaten by a giant plant monster. No, the village will blame this on me. Fu screamed in desperation as she sliced through the roots of nearby plants and vines with her water sword. That's when she saw a large blue fireball descend from the trees and collide with the plant monster and burn it to ashes. "Are you okay?" she heard, and turned around to see a boy with spiky blonde hair that had two bangs framing his face and sky blue eyes. She had a worried frown on her face and was wearing an orange long-sleeved kimono top with a red spiral on the bottom left side and covered by a black obi. It was also embroidered with black silk. He has black anbu pants with pockets and a shuriken holster on his left thigh and black shinobi sandals. Fu blushed heavily as she saw the nice boy who sat next to her in the exam before she tensed up, preparing to fight him even if he was the famous genin called the Yellow Death. Naruto held his hands up in surrender. "Are you okay? I got here just in time to see that plant monster chasing you and I burned it," he said, telling her that he was the one who stopped the attack earlier. After remembering the death of her teammates, she collapsed on the ground crying as she knew the fate that would befall her when she returned to the village with her teammates dead. SC Naruto quickly approached her and hugged her, and she hugged him tightly while crying. Hey, why are you crying?" Naruto asked worriedly. "Where are your teammates?" Naruto asked. Fu broke out of her scorned state. "I don't care about those two bastards. The reason I'm like this is because when I show up to my village with their corpses, I'll most likely be banished. They hate me enough already. All because I have the terrifying Bijuu sealed inside me," she shouted before she froze and looked at Naruto with scared eyes, thinking he would avoid her. Naruto just gave her a friendly smile. "Hey, don't worry, I won't scare you or push you away. In fact, I know exactly how you feel. If you can keep a secret, I'll show you why," Naruto said while still smiling kindly. Fu shyly nodded. Naruto smiled before he stood up and helped Fu up as well. He closed his eyes and Fu felt a very familiar type of chakra begin to gather around him. When he opened his eyes, they were red with slits for pupils, and the whisker marks on his cheeks had become darker and more prominent, along with his canines growing slightly longer. She gasped as she realized the changes. "You're a Jinchuriki too?" she asked, hoping that she found someone like him. Naruto nodded. "Yes, I'm pregnant with the Kyuubi," Naruto said as he let the changes recede. He suddenly found himself engulfed in a hug, and while confused he hugged her back. "I'm so glad I met someone like me," he whispered as he hugged her. Naruto smiled. "Well, since your village doesn't seem to want you anymore, why don't you join my village? I can take you under the protection of the clan and there's nothing that can be done about it," Naruto asked. Fu looked at him with tears of joy before she kissed his cheek while shouting thank you repeatedly. Naruto's face was like a tomato at that moment as he held his cheek that had just been kissed. When Fu realized what she had done, she also blushed and hid her face in her hands. Naruto chuckled at that. "Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said with a bow, making Fu chuckle. Deciding to return the gesture, he bowed as well. "I am Fu, no last name," he said with a smile. "Follow me, Fu-chan, then. We will sneak out of this forest and head to my house. I am just a shadow clone of Naruto since he is with his team doing this exam," Naruto said as he held out his hand. Fu confusedly took it. "How do you plan on sneaking out? There are leaf shinobi overseeing the exam," she asked, and Naruto smirked slyly. "Hold your breath," was all she heard before they disappeared. After she got over the shock of the teleportation and Naruto avoiding any questions about it, he placed her in her house and told her that the real one would be there once the exam was over and appeared. Flashback no Jutsu Kai. After receiving the memories from his clone, Naruto fell asleep wondering if there would be any changes in the prelims. The day of the prelims. Team 7 along with Teams 8, 9, and 10 had all qualified, making the entire Rookie 12 exempt from the prelims. With them were the older Konoha Genin teams, which were Kabuto's team, the Sand Brothers team, and the Sound team all made it. Although the Sound team was glaring death at Sasuke for some reason. They all lined up on the arena floor with the Hokage standing in front of them along with their Junin sensei and the Chunin exam proctor Hayate. Their Hokage spoke to them. I would like to start off by congratulating you all on passing the second exam. However, I have some bad news. Too many of you passed, so we are going to have to hold prelims to lower the numbers a bit, since the third exam will be a tournament in front of the 5 cage this time along with the demos, and with this many it will take a long time. He said, earning protests from the people who just made it that day, including Team 8. Yes, I know some of you may be tired, but you have to understand the reason we are holding these exams openly like this. This is a substitute for war. In times of peace like this, we villages compete with each other for clients with exams like this. He explained to them so they would understand. Now the preliminaries will. He was interrupted by a cough as Hayate stepped forward. If I may, Hokage-sama, he said, and when Hiruzen nodded, Hayate looked at the gathered genin. Hello, I am Gecko Hayate and the proctor for this year's Chunin exams. We will be holding the preliminaries now. The council behind me will rotate names and the two will face each other. It can be anyone who passes, including teammates. He told them. Now please proceed to the stands above us and we will begin. All the genin climbed the stairs, and once they did, the screen began to display names. After a few minutes it stopped. The first match is Naruto Uzumaki vs. Zaku Abumi. Hayate announced the names displayed. Naruto smirked at this change in timeline as it meant Orochimaru was watching him now if he interfered enough to make Naruto face a healthy ninja. It also meant he didn't have to hold back. He jumped down into the stadium and stood across from the boy with the windpipe on his arm. I don't care if you're in the bingo book, if I kill you here and now I'll be famous. Zaku declared arrogantly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. If that's what you think, then I'll win in one move. Naruto said again, making Zaku growl. After seeing that they were ready, Hayate called for them to begin. Air duct decapitation. Zaku shouted, raising his hand and blasting a concentrated blast of wind chakra at Naruto. The Naruto he hit was nothing but an afterimage as Naruto disappeared and reappeared behind Zaku with pure speed before hitting him in the lower back with a palm strike, sending him rolling across the arena as black lines crawled up his body from the ceiling ink on Naruto's gloves. Zaku cursed as he felt his body locked to the ground due to the paralysis jutsu. Don't worry, it'll wear off in about 30 seconds, I just need time to do this. Naruto said as he sliced his wrist open with his tanto, much to the confusion of everyone there as they watched his blood pool onto the ground. Naruto then flashed through hand signs before calling out, Uzumaki secret art, blood clone jutsu. He said, and the blood bubbled and rose before forming an identical clone of Naruto, only it was slightly weaker than him and much more alive and powerful than the shadow clone. Everyone there then realized why he cut himself. Naruto then swung his bloodied arm that was steaming as it healed and swung the blood onto the floor around his blood clone. He then saw the Hokage and Orochimaru, who were disguised as the Junin Sound team, and smirked, before flashing 100 hand signs in a matter of seconds. Hiruzen and Orochimaru widened their eyes as they realized what he did. Summoning Jutsu, Edo Tensai. He shouted as he slammed his hand on the floor, causing a seal to appear under his clone, and a coffin emerged from the ground and swallowed him. Zaku also started to feel back in his body as the seal disappeared. Everyone there who didn't know was curious about what summoning technique required a sacrifice, while others had a bad feeling rise in their chests as the coffin slowly began to open. They gasped in shock from the older Junin in the room, along with the Anbu and the Hokage, as well as Orochimaru, who widened his eyes in shock as they recognized who came out of the coffin. It was a very beautiful woman with long red hair. She wore a pale yellow kimono top with short sleeves reminiscent of Naruto. It was covered by a black obi. She wore black shorts underneath the kimono top, making it look like a skirt. She wore black thigh-high socks and black shinobi sandals. The black sclera and cracked skin reminiscent of paper did nothing to detract from her beauty. This was the Scarlet Death of Konoha Kushina Uzumaki. Haika-chan, Naruto said with a grin, surprising the younger generation even more as this let them know who the woman was. The woman seemed to shake slightly before what seemed like clarity dawned in her eyes. She looked around the room she was in before looking to her left and smiling brightly. She ran over to Naruto and hugged him tightly, lifting him off the ground as she was quite tall and Naruto was still a little short. "Oh look, my little Naru-chan all grown up," she cooed, making everyone in the room sweat drop as it ruined the image they had created for her thanks to Naruto. Naruto meanwhile was blushing furiously in embarrassment. "Even Naruto, this jutsu you used. Please tell me you didn't sacrifice anyone to summon me," she asked. But Naruto shook his head and grinned as they ignored everyone around them. "Well, I used one of our clan's secret arts, blood clones," he said, grinning as if he had just broken the laws of ninjutsu. Which he did. This caused Kushina to smile brightly at her son before her face turned serious as she set him down and looked at the person across from them who was now standing with the seal completely gone. "So why did you call me Naru-chan?" he asked. Hearing this, Naruto became serious as well, and those watching felt the change and watched intently, wondering how the match that was supposed to end had gone. You had to beat that genin. I just wanted to laze around and not do it," he said sheepishly. His mother got a tick at this and glared at her son angrily. "Sochi, laziness is unbecoming of a ninja. Honestly, you are just like your father when it comes to paperwork." She stopped talking when she saw Naruto's eyes widen and made a slash across her throat to shut him up. As if realizing where she was, Kushina sheepishly rubbed the back of her head, making the Hokage sigh in relief that her secret had not been revealed. The others in the room now knew where Naruto got his tendencies from. "Well, since you interrupted my time with my son, I will have to take you down, kid," Kushina said with a red mist aura around her as she glared coldly at Zaku, who was preparing to attack them while they were distracted. A purple-haired Anbu shivered as he saw the death aura of his genin sensei, as he used to call him, once again in the living world. Of course he still had tears in his eyes as he saw it again. He could see Anko, who was there, also crying, and he could see Kurenai doing the same. Golden chains manifested around his fist and he disappeared in a blur. He was a Junin after all, before punching Zaku in the face and knocking him down as he collided with the wall. The chains disappeared along with the death aura around Kushina. He had returned to his happy self. Gecko Hayate watched everything go forward. "The match is over and Naruto Uzumaki wins," he said. This seemed to be what made everyone flinch as they started throwing questions at Naruto. "Hey Naruto, you mean you can bring people back from the dead?" Kiba shouted after he looked at his mother with a bit of saliva. "Yes and no, I guess. Yes, I can with this jutsu, but usually it requires a human sacrifice and also a forbidden jutsu. The version I just used can only be used to bring back someone from my bloodline," Naruto replied as he climbed the stairs with his mother happily following him as she poked and prodded him since she hadn't seen him since he learned the jutsu and summoned it for the first time when he was 11 using a bandit's corpse. She immediately scolded him for it and he promised not to do it again unless he found a way to do it without human sacrifice. She admired how cute his little Sochi looked. "Then why didn't you revive all your relatives?" he asked. Naruto looked at him with sad eyes as Kushina smiled sadly. "Because the dead should stay dead, and be in the afterlife with their loved ones. I just called Ka-chan since she never got to say goodbye and I finally had a way to do it safely," he replied, and all the older ones and even some of the more mature ones from the younger generation nodded at his logic. "I see, sorry people," Kiba apologized, realizing how hard it must have been for Naruto to have that ability, but to know that he shouldn't have done it. Naruto waved his worries away as he looked at the board that was starting to scroll through the names again. "That's cool, man. I forgot about it a long time ago," he said, and Kiba nodded as he turned his gaze to the board as well. Kushina had now stopped pushing her son and was now seen talking to Kurenai, Neko, Yugao, and Anko. "Is that how you wanted him to say goodbye?" Kiba asked her as they watched the match between Shikamaru and Kin. "Yeah, they were his genin squad before he died in the Kyuubi attack," Naruto answered her. "Wow, so your mom taught Kurenai-sensei. That's cool," Kiba said. They both then noticed how Ino approached Naruto's mom and talked to her, and her mom said something that caused her to blush and made the other three girls laugh at her. They all then looked at Naruto, who raised an eyebrow before they started talking in whispers. Naruto felt a chill go up his spine at this. "Why do I feel scared when I see that?" Naruto conspired, whispering with Kiba. Kiba smirked as he punched Naruto's arm as they watched Shikamaru win with his lazy but impressive strategy. "Dude, if I were you I would enjoy it," he laughed. "Yeah, but my mom can be a pervert sometimes. When I first called her she kept talking about how I should rebuild my clan with lots of girls and that she wanted lots of grandchildren. I always thought you should be monogamous," Naruto complained as he and Kiba watched the man, Dosu, face off against Shino. Kiba looked at him like he was stupid. "Dude, I wish my mom was like yours. She sounds amazing," he whispered as the onlooking Shino plugged his ears with bugs to bypass Dosu's melody arm technique before winning by draining his chakra and poisoning him with poisonous beetles. "Yeah, she's amazing," Naruto said with a chuckle. They continued talking as the others went up and fought. They watched the sand catsuit-wearing siblings win against one of the older Konoha genin and then watched their sister defeat the cute panda-looking genin from Konoha. They then watched Sasuke easily defeat another older Konoha genin with his fire ninjutsu. Their teammate Kabuto had lost early on. Then they had a really impressive match between Sakura and Ino, with Sakura winning by tricking Ino into trying to have an earth clone before knocking Ino out with a rock fist. Then the match that always annoyed Naruto to watch was Hinata versus her cousin Neji, which actually went the same as last time except Lee was yelling cheering her on, beating Naruto for it. Naruto. Remembered how Hinata said she grew up idolizing his determination to persevere, and he figured that with her absence this time, Lee must have filled that role. Next up was Kiba and Choji. It was a close match after Choji got a boost through bribing him with barbecue. It was also ironic since their best moves caused them to spin at insane speeds. It ended with Choji losing because he didn't have as much stamina as Kiba, who beat him in their spinning taijutsu contest. The final match was the one Naruto was looking forward to. He didn't know what effect growing up as a girl would have on Gaara and wanted to see if there was anything different. He was somewhat right, as he seemed more bloodthirsty than his male counterparts, but he could have been wrong. If he was, he assumed it was a defense mechanism to protect himself from the darker aspects of shinobi life. It ended the same, with Lee badly injured and Guy saving him from death by removing Gaara's sand. Naruto may have wanted to change things, but even he knew when to avoid them. This all led to Naruto, Kiba, Sakura, Sasuke, Neji, Shikamaru, Kankuro, Temari, Gaara, and Shino standing in front of the Hokage, Hinata, Anko, and Kushina, who hadn't had a chance to say goodbye to everyone she knew yet. Congratulations to all of you for making it to the third exam. As I said before, this is a tournament. You will draw numbers to determine your matches. Do it now, Hiruzen told them. Anko came with a box of paper strips. All the genin did so. Please read out your numbers now, Hayate said as he prepared a clipboard and pen to arrange the matches. 9. Naruto said. 1. Sasuke said. 2. Neji said. 6. Sakura cheered happily that she made it to the finals. 4. Shino shouted. 3. Kankuro said lazily. 7. Shikamaru sighed. 8. Temari sniffed. 10. Gaara said with a bloodthirsty grin. 5. Kiba said with a smirk. Hayate wrote down their numbers before informing them of their matches. So the order of matches is Sasuke vs. Neji, Kankuro vs. Shino, Kiba vs. Sakura, Shikamaru vs. Temari, and Naruto vs. Gaara. Hayate informed them as each ninja observed their opponents. There will be a month-long break to allow our officials to arrive, as well as to allow you to develop more skills other than the ones you showed off here today. I wish you all the best of luck, Hiruzen informed them before walking away. Kakashi and Kushina went up to Team 7 after everyone left, since they were the only ones left. Congratulations to you all for making it to the finals and being the only full team to make it, Kakashi said with smiling eyes. This earned a thank you from Naruto and a shy one from Sakura and a good-natured grin from Sasuke. Now that's it for this month's training. Kushina here said she wanted to introduce Sakura to someone she believed could help her for the month. Naruto, I have a present for you that I think will help you a lot, and to let you know Jiraiya is in the village. Sasuke, you stay with me, Kakashi told them, earning nods from the three. Kakashi grabbed Sasuke's shoulder and they disappeared in a swirl of leaves. This left Naruto, Sakura and his mother. Well, first off, congratulations Sochi, I'm very proud of you. Also, since it seems like you know Jiraiya, I want you to smack him in the nuts for me when you catch him peeking, he said with a wink, causing Naruto to grin and nod. Alright, good. Now before I head back to the afterlife, I want to introduce you Sakura to someone I trained during their genin days who I believe can help you defeat that Inuzuka. Naruto, I'll see you later at home, okay? He said, looking at Naruto at the last part, who nodded with a smile before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Okay Sakura, you and I should go to Dango Sop, I'm sure he'll be there after the exams, Kushina said with a smile. Sakura nodded with a smile and allowed Kushina to follow her out of the stadium. Naruto had returned to his house after his mother and Kakashi told him to meet Jiraiya later at the hot springs. He appeared in front of his house's door and took out his key to open the door. As soon as he did, he walked in. Fu, I'm back, she called out as she walked in. She heard footsteps and looked up to see a sight that caused her face to light up. Ga, get dressed, she called out as Fu walked in wearing only a towel, as she clearly just got out of the shower. Fu had a bright smile on her face as she ignored her modesty. Hey Naruto. This place is awesome, and your shower is so big and relaxing, she said cheerfully. Naruto though wanted her to put on some clothes, sighed as she smiled. I'm glad you like it, Fu. Now if you'll get dressed we can talk to the Hokage about you staying here permanently, she said with a soft smile. Fu nodded her head excitedly as she ran back to the room Naruto's clone told her would be his. Naruto chuckled at her and went to his room to put on a new set of clothes as well. 10 minutes later the two jumped off the roof towards the Hokage tower. Fu seemed nervous at first, but seeing Naruto's calm and confident appearance she calmed down. They arrived at the office and asked the secretary if she could come in, where she smiled at Naruto and nodded. Naruto walked up to the door and knocked, and after accepting and entering he walked in with Fu beside him, who looked nervous again. Hiruzen looked and saw the two. He smiled at Naruto but raised an eyebrow at Fu, who still had the Takigaker headband on her arm. Good afternoon Naruto-kun. Congratulations on making it to the finals. I must ask why you brought a Takigaker genin with you. She asked curiously, hearing that Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Ha ha ha, it's like this is Fu. She wants to become a ninja in our village, and I plan on taking her under the protection of the clan to do so. She's not treated well in Taki for some reason. Naruto said, pointing to her stomach at the end. Hiruzen widened his eyes at this and looked at the nervous girl. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. Since you're using the clan's protection, there's nothing I can do to stop this and I have to allow it. Although she has to be on suspension so we can be sure she's loyal. Sometimes Naruto, I feel like you like to give me headaches. He said with a chuckle at the end. Do you know which one? He asked after he placed his hand on the seal on his desk to make the rest of the conversation private. Naruto nodded. She's the host of the Nanabi. Naruto replied as Fu gripped his arm, hoping he wouldn't be treated badly by the Hokage because of this. I see. Fu, what color would you like your headband to be? Hiruzen asked, releasing the seal as he opened a drawer in his desk that contained different colored headbands. Hearing this, Fu smiled. Red. She cheered, feeling better that she didn't care. Hiruzen nodded and she threw the red one at him. He undid the one on his arm and replaced it with the new one in Konoha. Are we going to get any trouble from Taki over this, Naruto? Hiruzen asked. He trusted Naruto to make good decisions and wanted to know what he planned. Naruto shook his head. No, the leader of Taki is a coward and will most likely kick him out when they find out his teammates died in the Forest of Death. If they say anything, tell them about the Akatsuki and it would be best for him to come here. He said. Hiruzen nodded. Okay, now I'm sure you've been told that Jiraiya is here and Kakashi gave him something for you. Hiruzen asked. Naruto nodded. Alright then, you're dismissed. I'm sure you know where he is. Hiruzen said and Naruto nodded. Naruto turned to Fu and smiled. Come on Fu-chan, let's beat up some perverts in the hot springs. Naruto said with a grin as he grabbed Fu's hand and led her outside. Fu had a confused expression on her face but nodded and followed Naruto outside. Konoha Hot Springs. A giggle could be heard coming from the tree just outside the hot springs as a uniquely dressed man sat inside with a pair of binoculars in his hands. He had long, spiky white hair that was tied into a ponytail at the small of his back. He had red markings on his face and pitch black eyes. He wore a red and green kimono top over a fishnet shirt and red shinobi pants. For shoes he had a pair of geta and on his forehead protector was written the kanji for oil. This was Jiraiya of the Sannin and self-proclaimed super pervert, as well as the author of the popular book series Ika Ika Paradise. He was currently peeking into the girl's bathroom and writing in a notebook for the next book he was writing. He felt someone tap him on the shoulder and looked to his left to see a beautiful girl with long blonde hair and was developed in all the right areas sitting in the tree with him with a creepy smile on her face. She wore an orange kimono top with black accents covered with a black obi and a black skirt underneath. She wore black thigh-high socks and black shinobi sandals. My mom made me do this, sorry. The girl said in a cute voice before she punched Jiraiya in the face, who finally recognized the girl and sent him flying into the women's hot spring section. The woman was heard screaming as sparks were heard before the sound of a man screaming as he was beaten to a pulp. The girl in the tree exploded in a puff of smoke before disappearing to reveal Naruto using his sexy jutsu. He was laughing so hard he had to hold his stomach and giggles could be heard next to him as Fu sat on the other side of him laughing at the scene as well. Ah, that was always fun. Naruto said soothingly as he wiped the tears from her eyes. Yeah right, now I see why you have that perverted jutsu. Fu said laughing next to him. She was initially skeptical of his intentions when he showed her the jutsu, until she saw what he did and couldn't help but laugh beside him. Yeah laugh brat. A voice said from behind the two and belonged to Jiraiya, who looked like crap after being beaten by the women in the hot springs. HMPH Ka-chan told me to beat you to a pulp, so be happy that's your alternative. Naruto sniffed smugly before smirking. Ka-chan huh, so I guess you've found a safe way to do that jutsu? Jiraiya asked with a hand on his chin. She had been told a secret that only she, Naruto, and the Sandaime knew now where Naruto really came from. Plus she was with Naruto the day he performed the Edo Tensei, which surprised her since she knew the jutsu. Yes, I used the Uzumaki clan jutsu. Blood clone. The only difference in the Edo Tensei is I can only revive someone from my bloodline. Naruto explained to her. Jiraiya nodded, understanding what she meant. Anyo, I'm confused. Fu said to them. Naruto and Jiraiya turned to her with confused looks before Naruto's face scrunched up. Haha right, forgot you weren't in the preliminaries. You see, my parents are dead, and my mom and dad never got to say goodbye. I used a jutsu to bring my mom back and won the preliminaries with it, and now she is going around to people she knows around the village to say goodbye. My dad is a complicated matter and I can't use a jutsu to do the same with him. Naruto explained to her. Oh I see. Sorry if I brought up painful memories. She mumbled. Naruto put a hand on her shoulder and smiled at her. It's okay Fu-chan, I got over it a long time ago. I'm happy with my life now. He told her. Fu nodded and smiled at him. Jiraiya saw this, got a sly grin on his face. Oh ho ho ho, so that's Fu-chan huh? He said, grinning at Naruto, who was now blushing, followed by Fu, who was also blushing. Shut up you wise guy. Naruto yelled at him. Jiraiya got a tick at this. Oi, I told you to stop calling me that Gaki. Jiraiya yelled back at him. Naruto just crossed his arms and smirked at him. HMPH, well see if I gave you the present Kakashi gave you for the finals. Jiraiya grumbled as he crossed his arms and turned around. In a flash Naruto was in front of him, in his face with a wide grin. Let me see. What did he give me, ha ha ha? Naruto said very quickly. Jiraiya grinned and let out a dramatic sigh as he unsealed a black box from his sleeve before handing it to an excited Naruto. Naruto slowly opened the box and gasped at what was inside. He shakily held it up for Jiraiya and Fu to see. Is this what I think it is? Naruto said as he rubbed his hand over the sword Kakashi gave him. It was a tanto, except it wasn't like the regular ones. The hilt was black and had a circular gray guard. The blade of the tanto was pure white. Yep, the white light chakra saber from the Hitaki clan. He said it was time to pass it down again after he fixed it. Jiraiya told him. This got a shock from Fu since she knew the blade because it was made famous by Tsukumo and Kakashi. Can you tell him I thanked you when you see him? Naruto said as he wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He really liked the gift Kakashi gave him. I'll be naughty. Now we both know you're more than strong enough for the finals, and Kakashi talking to you about training with me for a month in front of your teammates was just a cover for you to use. So by saying that you're free to do what you want for the next month. Jiraiya explained to Naruto, who nodded his head. Naruto then looked at Fu before looking at Jiraiya. Hey Jiraiya, what nature transformations can you do? Naruto asked curiously. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the random question but answered anyway. Well, I can use all of them except the main ones are earth, fire, and water. Why? He asked after answering. Well, since you're going to be here until the finals, why not train Fu-chan instead? She's a new shinobi from the Leaf and will be assigned to a team or apprentice to Chunin after the Chunin exams are over with. Naruto suggested, much to Fu's surprise. It was an honor for her to be trained by one of the Sannin. Fu, tell me about yourself. Jiraiya said to her. Fu seemed a little nervous at first, but after an encouraging nod from Naruto, he stood up straight and answered. Well, I am from Takigakure and know the jutsu taught to all water sword genin. I know that by testing my affinity with chakra paper that it is earth, and by using my water sword a lot I have developed a small one for water now as well. I am also the Jinchuriki of the Nanabi. She said confidently. Jiraiya nodded, humming. He was not surprised since he had been briefed on the situation while he was hiding in the Hokage's office watching the meeting. He was sure Naruto had noticed as well. How well can you control the chakra? He asked her. In times of need I can enter an initiative state, but I am afraid to try and go any further since I don't have someone to control me when I try. She answered him. Alright, I will train you, and in the process we can see about how to improve your control over the Nanabi. He told her with a grin. Fu nodded with a happy smile, excited that she would be receiving training from a Sannin. Alright then, I will head home to say goodbye to Ka-chan. Naruto said with a sad smile as he waved them off. Both of them nodded in understanding and waved him off. Alright Fu, the first step to seeing where you are at is chakra control. Jiraiya began. Back at the Uzumaki Namikaze household. Naruto arrived home to find his mother waiting for him in the living room. The two had a tearful goodbye, with his mother making a final taunt about him having many children with many girls before Naruto ended the jutsu. He then sat down and meditated and let the nature energy calm him from the devastation and missing his mother. 1 month later, Chunin Stadium. Over the past month all the dignitaries had arrived, including the cage of the 5 great nations along with their daimyo. Even the secretive Mist Village sent their cage along with 2 guards. Which turned out to be Mai Terumi, who won the civil war and killed Yagura to become the Godai Mizukage. Her guards were Ao and surprisingly Zabuza. Naruto had not had a chance to speak to Zabuza as he was busy helping Jiraiya train Fu, as his skills with Jinchuriki were needed to help him. Kumo had of course, with his guards being Bi and Darui. While Naruto was tempted to speak to Bi, he did not want to raise suspicion. The Iwa cage was Onoki and his guards were Kuritsuchi and Akatsuchi. Suna was of course Orochimaru in disguise, and he had 4 guards that Naruto knew as the 4 guardians. In the arena all the finalists were lined up ready to go. This included Naruto, Sasuke, who was surprisingly on time, which Naruto expected since Kakashi knew he was the first match. Sasuke was wearing his new black outfit like last time as well. Sakura was there and she looked different since her month was with someone like Anko. She didn't ditch her red, but she wore a red sleeveless top that stopped in the middle where she had a fishnet shirt. She had a red skirt and a pink sash-like thing tied to her right side. She had a utility belt to hold her pouch. She had black sandals as well. The other finalists were Gaara, Neji, Kiba, Shikamaru, Tamari, Kankuro and Shino. Hayate, who wasn't assigned to Shadow Kabuto, then approached them in the middle of the stadium and looked at Hiruzen waiting for his introduction. Seeing this, Hiruzen got up from his seat after checking to make sure the stands were full. In the room with the 5 cage were the 5 daimyo as well. In the stands all the rookie 12 who hadn't made it to the finals were there as well, along with Rock Lee, who was on crutches. Fu was there to cheer on Naruto as well. Welcome everyone to this year's Chunin exam finals. Hiruzen opened with and received a chorus of applause and cheers as it was the largest one yet, with all 5 villages watching the finals. I will keep this brief as I am sure the genin are excited for their chance to fight. I would like to personally congratulate this year's finalists, and with that I announce the beginning of the finals. He finally received another chorus of applause and cheers. Hayate then spoke once the applause had died down. Alright, may I ask Sasuke Uchiha and Neji Hyuga to remain here? The other finalists should head to the waiting room. He told them. All but the 2 that were announced walked to the waiting room to watch the match. Sasuke and Neji then stood facing each other as Hayate was in the middle of the 2. Alright, are you 2 ready? They both nodded. Hajime! Hayate exclaimed as he lowered his arms and jumped back. The 2 genin immediately activated their dojutsu, causing the crowd to go wild. Neji smirked. I acknowledge your position as Rookie of the Year and look forward to this fight and realize that this is not the time for words. Neji called out. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and just watched Neji carefully. Neji then charged forward to engage Sasuke in his clan's signature taijutsu style. Sasuke knew the dangers of it, using his Sharingan to its full potential, and used his clan's intercepting fist to counter everything Neji threw at him while minimizing his chakra points from closing. Seeing that he couldn't let any more chakra points close, Sasuke jumped up while making hand signs. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Sasuke called out, sending a fireball towards Neji. Neji smirked and got into a stance, causing many of the Hyuga clan members to stare. Father, that, Hanabi began but was interrupted by her father Hiyashi. I know Hanabi, he said. 8 trigrams, rotating palm. Neji called out, spinning while pouring chakra from all of his chakra points. A blue dome of chakra swirled around him and deflected Sasuke's fireball. The move ended and Neji smirked. HMPH, you'll never break my Uchiha's defense. He called out arrogantly. Sasuke cheated and decided to try something bigger. He went through more hand signs and Neji smirked and got into another stance. Fire style, great fireball technique. Sasuke called out as he put his finger in front of his mouth and exhaled a large fireball towards Neji. Rotation. Neji called out again and a large fireball hit his dome, but this time causing him to sweat from the heat as he had to use a lot of chakra to use this technique. Knowing he couldn't waste any more, he charged Sasuke as soon as the fireball dispersed and he cancelled his technique. He entered Sasuke's surprised guard and entered another stance, surprising many of the Hyuga as the audience watched the battle in excitement. You are in my divination field. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Neji called out and began attacking Sasuke before he could put up his defense. 2 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Neji called out as he finished his technique. He saw Sasuke have a shocked expression on his face as he fell to the ground before he shocked everyone there, who appeared in smoke. What? Neji shouted as he used his Byakugan and found Sasuke standing tall against the stadium wall looking exhausted. In fact, both fighters were panting due to using too much chakra in their genin bodies. Sasuke smirked as he felt all eyes on him. Shadow Clone 2 words. When you have a teammate like me who can use it freely, you know how to use it. Unfortunately I can only make 1 clone, but it's enough to make 1 and replace it after I use the Grand Fireball. He explained, earning nods of approval from all the ninjas there for his tactic while the civilians just watched in excitement. Now let's see your ultimate defense hold up against this. Sasuke shouted as he flashed 4 hand signs and held out his right hand with his left hand holding his wrist. Lightning began to gather around his hand and let out a screech similar to a bird. Despite being tired, Neji still got into a rotation position. Many of the older ones in the stands turned to Kakashi in shock. Kakashi, why are you teaching a genin an A-rank assassination technique? Guy asked in shock. Kakashi boredly looked away from the fight and answered the question. I knew he was going up against a tough opponent in the Hyuga and he needed a trump card. Plus he knows not to kill fellow Konoha ninja. He replied, making them gasp at him. Sasuke charged over the wall and headed towards Neji. Lightning ripped through the ground in a trail following his hand wrapped in it. As he neared it, Neji used his spin again. Chidori! Sasuke shouted as he thrust his hand into the dome. The dome held for a moment before being pierced by Sasuke due to Neji's lack of chakra to maintain it. Sasuke continued forward and stabbed Neji in the shoulder. Much to Kakashi's worry for a moment there. Neji fell to the ground unconscious from the pain and exhaustion while Sasuke fell to his knees gasping for air from using too much chakra. Seeing this, Hayate reappeared. The winner is Sasuke Uchiha, he announced, causing the crowd to erupt into cheers at the incredible display of talent. Medics emerged into the stadium and carried Neji as Sasuke shakily walked to the stands. Cage box. Those are some talented genin you have there, Hokage Dono. May the Mizukage commented once the match was over. Yes, especially the Uchiha. Orochimaru disguised as the Cage commented as he watched Sasuke closely leave for the waiting room. Nonsense, that Hyuga is clearly a branch member yet he knows the arts of the main branch. Onoki himself commented. But the Uchiha won. Arakage commented. Yes, but winning isn't all it takes for a promotion. Hiruzen finally said. Sadly though, the boy's arrogance has gotten him in a bad light, so I'm not sure if he'll be promoted. He finished earning nods from the others while Orochimaru ignored him. Back at the stadium. Can Kankuro of the Sand and Shino Aburame make their way to the stadium? Hayate announced. I forfeit. Kankuro shouted from the stands as he didn't want to show off his skills in front of everyone before the invasion. This earned him a few jeers which he ignored due to not caring. Alright then, Kiba Inuzuka and Sakura Haruno, please make your way to the stadium. Hayate announced, continuing. The two genin then got down and stood in front of each other. Begin. Hayate announced, jumping back. The fight was actually a close match, with Sakura being able to keep up with Kiba due to her newfound control over Earth release and her sensei's love of poison being passed on to her. It actually ended in a draw, with Kiba succumbing to the poisoning after he knocked Sakura out with a fang-on-fang jutsu. The crowd roared in approval and even Sasuke gave his acknowledgement of Sakura's skill level after the match ended, much to her delight. Cage box. A well-trained group of genin Hokage Dono. The girl has great control over the earth nature and good skill with poison. The boy, although he could be called a typical Inuzuka, is still nothing to scoff at. Mei once again commented first. The girl has grown since the last time I saw her. Zabuza spoke up next, making the others interested. Seeing this, he continued. She was in a genin squad with the Uchiha and Uzumaki. When we met she was nothing more than a civilian. Comparing the versions we saw is like night and day. He informed them, earning a nod. Yes, I'm sure it's quite difficult to be on a team with the likes of the Uchiha and Uzumaki along with a copycat ninja as well. A nod earning the mention. Back in the arena. Shikamaru and Temari had begun their match. Naruto noticed it went the same as last time, with Shikamaru showing his tactical genius but giving up just before he could win, stating it was a hindrance to the girl he was facing in his mother's anger. Then Hayate walked back to the center of the arena. Now for the final match of the first round. Gaara of the Sand and Naruto. He was interrupted by a kunai landing next to his feet as he called out the contestant's name. Naruto had looked at Hiruzen and held up a three-pronged kunai with a nod, earning a nod from him as well. So as soon as he said his first name, Naruto let it fly to the people who were looking at him in confusion. However, Onoki noticed what the kunai looked like and widened his eyes in horror. To prove his point, Naruto disappeared from the contestant box in a flash of yellow and landed next to Hayate. Namikaze. Naruto finished for Hayate with a mischievous grin, earning him a troubled look from Shikamaru from the stands. All was silent for a few seconds before the entire stadium erupted in cheers from the Konoha section. Yondaime-sama's legacy lives on. Ha, I knew he and Kushina-sama were together. Were things like that thrown around? The rookie 12 were shocked except for Shino and Shikamaru, who put two and two together, which is why Shikamaru explained things for those who didn't know. A loud chakra-boosted cough from the Hokage calmed everyone down. Thank you. Now, while I know this revelation may come as a surprise, we have the Chunin final exams to begin. He politely informed everyone. This caused them all to quiet down and turn their eyes to watch the match. Hayate nodded and stood in the middle of Gaara and Naruto, who were staring at each other. Begin, he said and jumped back. I will win here today, Gaara, and I will acknowledge your existence. He told him, earning wide eyes from him before he scowled darkly and let his sand surround him protectively. Seeing this, Naruto pulled out his first trump card. He unsealed a large blue scroll and threw it into the air. He clapped his black-gloved hands together. Unseal, he shouted, and the scroll unrolled itself in the air before a large amount of water poured out of it and filled the stadium, causing Naruto and Gaara to have to tread water to continue fighting. This also had the effect of soaking Gaara's sand and causing his sand armor to fall off. Naruto decided to start the battle. He showed through hand signs at insane speed before lightning flowed through his hands. Lightning style, flowing lightning. He shouted and released it into the water, sending it towards Gaara. Gaara widened his eyes and jumped into the air to avoid it. Unfortunately, this was exactly what Naruto expected. He went through more hand signs and brought his hands to his mouth. Lava style, magma flow. he shouted, causing Mei to widen her eyes at the style as well as Onoki. A large wave of magma erupted from Naruto's mouth, flying towards Gaara's location in the air. Don't underestimate me, he shouted and met his lava with a wave of sand blocking it, causing the sand it met to turn into glass. I'm not, he heard her whisper behind him before he felt a chakra-boosted fist strike his back, sending him flying across the stadium, bouncing on the water. Naruto landed on the water and held the snake hand sign. Water style, water dragon jutsu, he shouted, causing a roaring dragon to come out of the water and head towards Gaara. It impacted him as he stopped rolling long enough to stand up. When the water subsided, a dome of sand was seen floating on top of the water, telling Naruto that he was almost broken. He unsheathed the tanto he had in the middle of his back. The tanto that was a gift from Kakashi. The white light chakra sword. Everyone who knew about it widened their eyes as it was repaired and in Naruto's hands. Tenten had stars in her eyes as she looked at it, and a small amount of drool came out of her mouth. Naruto then placed one hand on top of the other on the hilt and held it close to his body as he got into a strange position. Wind style, divine spear, he said calmly. The only evidence that anything had happened was the shimmer of wind chakra around the tip of Naruto's sword and the scream of blood that came out of the dome that now had a hole right in it. It looked like the sword had just pierced through it. My blood, this is my blood, Gaara screamed from his dome of sand as he saw blood seeping out of his shoulder that had been pierced by the jutsu. The sand began to crumble and surround him, turning him into a half-transformed Bijuu. All the civilians were confused at the last part as they didn't see what pierced the dome. However, the shinobi were shocked at the wind-style jutsu he had just used. His speed was insane and only Kakashi, who had the Sharingan, could keep up with him. Then Gaara half-transformed and his shock turned into fear of the Bijuu appearing right in the middle of Konoha. Naruto watched the feathers begin to fall and knew it was time. Completely ignoring Gaara, he clapped his gloved hands together and called out, Kai, and sent a powerful pulse of chakra sweeping across the stadium, causing the feathers that had begun to fall to disappear. He then clapped his hands together once more and called out, FUNN, Great Barrier, he shouted as he slapped his hands into the water. Immediately a large number of black lines spread out from his position before they hit the paper tags he had placed the night before in the stadium. Large boxes of white translucent energy erupted around the spectator boxes. The contestants had one, the spectators had one, and even the cage box had one. What also surprised him greatly was the barrier that surrounded Orochimaru, who was about to blow up the cage box, and four more appeared surrounding the four voices. Another barrier similar to them appeared in the stands and surrounded Kabuto, who was watching the match. Another barrier had surrounded the daimyo to protect them as well. Hokage Dono, what is the meaning of this? I shouted as he and his guards prepared for battle, as well as Mei and hers and Onoki and his. Yes, Hokage Dono, please explain yourself why those genin just sealed off the entire stadium with cage Dono. Mei asked as she tensed herself up ready for battle. This can all be explained easily, right, Orochimaru? Hiruzen asked calmly as he turned to the cage. This made the other three cage shocked as they turned to Orochimaru, who growled as he ripped off his mask and revealed himself in all his famous glory. How? Orochimaru seethed. Naruto is quite the clever boy and knew of your invasion plans beforehand. So he prepared all of this. Hiruzen calmly replied. The other three cage who saw his calmness also calmed down. Yes, but that brat has now sealed most of your shinobi forces. How are you going to protect your precious village from my forces? Orochimaru said with a smirk. Hiruzen smirked as he pointed to Naruto in the arena. The arena with Naruto and Gaara. Naruto crossed his hands into a seal that he had been using for most of his life. Shadow clone technique, he shouted. Soon the stadium was filled with clones. You all know what to do. Naruto told them. Protect the Leaf Village, he said. They all nodded and disappeared in yellow flashes to various markers around the village. Now for you, Gaara, Naruto said, turning his attention to him. He had a crazy smile on his face as he looked at her. You may have protected others, but you won't be able to protect yourself. Plus, let's see your barrier, hold this. He shouted as he held his hands in a hand sign. Ninja art, playing possum jutsu. He shouted and instantly fell asleep, causing a wave of sand to erupt around him as he began to spin completely. Naruto, however, calmly sat down and meditated, much to the confusion of those in the stands except for Hiruzen and Jiraiya. Kakashi-sensei, what is Naruto doing? Gaara turned into a monster and he just sits there. Sakura shouted, confused. It took Kakashi a moment to answer her as he watched Naruto's chakra pathways with his Sharingan to confirm his suspicions. He entered Sage mode. He finally answered her. Spectator box. He entered Sage mode. Kakashi answered Sakura. Wise mode, she asked, confused as the others were also interested except for the older shinobi who were shocked here that one so young achieved it. Yes, a sage is someone who is trained to take the energy of nature itself into their body. Although it is very dangerous because if you take the wrong amount you will die. To achieve it you need a summoning contract as well, and even if you have one not everyone can do it. The same can be said for me. I have a summoning contract with a dog but I can't achieve sage mode. He explained to her. So, he was interrupted by a loud roar and everyone turned their attention to see that Gaara had fully transformed into the Ikibi known as Shukaku. Naruto stood facing down as well with a slightly new look. Back in the arena. I'm free, shouted a slightly crazed distorted voice. It came from a large raccoon-shaped animal made entirely of sand and with strange markings covering its entire body. Its tail was the same except it was segmented oddly. Naruto was annoyed because other changes in the timeline showed Gaara's body not emerging from Shukaku's head, so he knew he had to do this the hard way. So you are Shukaku, a cold voice announced, making him freeze and look down to see Naruto glaring at him with crossed arms. Shukaku internally shivered at the resemblance to the Yondaime Case when he fought him and forced him down with his gold dust like the Sandaime Case did with his iron sand. The one glaring at him coldly was a little different now than he was before Shukaku was freed. He was still wearing his orange long-sleeved kimono top and black anbu pants. However, now over that was a red cloak with black flames licking the bottom and a large black scroll tied to his back. And who are you, little worm? Shukaku madly taunted Naruto. I will be the one to bring you back, Naruto said as he opened the scroll and threw it high while clapping his hands. Unseal, he shouted. Shukaku meanwhile was annoyed with the water in the stadium and gathered sand around him to flood the stadium and absorb it. He looked up when he heard the unseal and widened his eyes at what he saw along with everyone else in the stadium. To hover in the air dangerously above Naruto, who was still glaring at him, was the infamous iron sand of the Sandaime Case. This was Naruto's second trump card against Shukaku and Gaara. He had two more, but those were for drastic circumstances, which he was sure he would have to use. Magnet style, iron spear. Naruto called out, sending hundreds of spears made of iron sand hurtling at Shukaku. All of them pierced through his massive body, making him roar in pain. Naruto didn't want to question the logic of how something made of sand could hurt. Shukaku retaliated by inflating his body before punching it with his fist, sending a large air bullet towards Naruto, who was already showing signs. Knowing he couldn't fight the power of the Bijuu's jutsu on his own, he decided to defend. Earth style, earth wall jutsu. He shouted as he slammed his hand into the ground. A large wall of earth rose just in time to take the bullet but was destroyed. Naruto was intrigued by this. He knew he had to bring out the big guns soon. He charged towards Shukaku, who was laughing at him, and swung his claw, making the crowd gasp. However, Naruto caught it with both hands and lifted Shukaku into the air with a scream and over his shoulder and slammed him into the ground behind him. If he could do it to the Kyuubi, he could do it to anything but the Jubi. Everyone's eyes widened, wondering how he was able to lift that thing. Naruto started showing hand signs immediately after throwing Shukaku. He gathered a large amount of chakra and natural energy for the technique. Finally he finished the snake hand seal. Sage art, wood style, wood dragon jutsu. He shouted, making everyone's jaws drop to the ground as a large wooden dragon rose from the ground and wrapped itself around Shukaku, binding him to the ground while sucking his energy like wood style is known to do to Bijuu. The crowd started cheering wildly as they saw Naruto use the legendary wood style and use it to bind the Bijuu right in front of them. Now that Naruto had bound Shukaku, he had time to flash more hand seals. However, he realized it wasn't going to be that easy as Shukaku started gathering positive and negative chakra, forming the most famous Bijuu technique. The Bijuu bomb. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw this, as he did it in the middle of the village. Acting quickly, he jumped on top of Shukaku and pulled out one of his father's kunai. He used the same stance his father did as he did the same thing Naruto was about to do. As soon as the ball was released, it impacted Naruto's kunai and began to distort until it was sucked into it and an explosion was heard in the distance. Not playing around any longer, Naruto went through the hand signs he had tried earlier at an insane speed. He then clapped his hands together once he was done. Sage art, wood style, 10th Edict of Enlightenment. Naruto shouted and pillars of wooden spikes emerged from the ground to surround Shukaku, who was still battling the wood dragon. As they were surrounded, tendrils of green energy shot out from each spike and latched onto Shukaku. Shukaku let out one last roar before all the sand fell away to reveal Gaara's unconscious form. At this point the crowd went wild. Cage and Daimyo box. Hokage Dono, I don't even know where to begin, Mei said as the crowd went wild. She was prepared for a highly skilled boiling style user from the Uzumaki clan, not like what she had just witnessed. Hiruzen rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. Well, I would say that tact is not Naruto's forte, but I can understand the situation here. Hiruzen replied with a sigh. But to reach this level he's still very young. Not to mention the amount of Kekkei Genkei elements he has. Onoki muttered, seriously reconsidering their aggression towards Konoha. I'm sure you are aware of his talent, or at least part of it. It was a cunning move using him to bring fame and contracts to Konoha Hokage Dono. A commented. This was proven as Hiruzen smirked. Well, technically he is still a genin, he said amused. They all turned their attention towards Orochimaru, who was looking hungrily at Naruto at this point, completely ignoring his previous attempts to escape the barrier he was in. They then saw Naruto appear before them with a flash of yellow and place his hand on Orochimaru's barrier before leading them both to the stadium with Orochimaru still inside the barrier. Naruto looked directly at the Hokage with a sharp glare, and Hiruzen sighed and nodded his head grimly. With the audience, all the rookie 12, Junin, and spectators watched in awe at Naruto as he fought the Bijuu and completely defeated it, as well as his revelation of some of his Kekkei Genkai elements. Sasuke had a wide grin on his face as he watched his rival. To think he gained this power here in Konoha and not somewhere else. Orochimaru was completely wrong in saying that Konoha would hold me back, he thought in his head as he watched Naruto's battle. Fu watched with wide eyes at the power of her new housemate. What made it even greater for her was that it was all him, not his Bijuu. Then it was all over and they all cheered loudly for Naruto. With Naruto after he left with Orochimaru. Naruto gave Hiruzen a glare after he landed in the stadium again. Hiruzen nodded solemnly at him and Naruto turned his attention back to Orochimaru, who was once again trying to escape the barrier he was in. By now the crowd had calmed down and were curious to see what was going to happen. Orochimaru the Sannin, I am Naruto Namikaze and I will not let the leaf fall. Naruto shouted, causing all sorts of cheers to erupt from the crowd. Like so many before you, you have fallen to the power of the leaf. Naruto continued loudly, causing Orochimaru to turn his attention to Naruto. Your invasion has failed and you have fallen into my trap. For all your crimes against the hidden leaf, you are hereby sentenced to death. Naruto said coldly. Hearing that, Orochimaru smirked. Oh, and how do you plan on doing that? I'm immortal. No matter what damage you give me, I'll just create a new body. He shouted back. Naruto just clapped his hands and placed them on the barrier, causing it to transform. It became a white translucent tower with Orochimaru in the sky looking down on them. As Naruto was about to gather energy for what he was about to do, he was interrupted by Kurama's voice. Kid, I should probably tell you before you do what you are about to do that another change to you in this world is that you hold my yin chakra instead of my yang. So when I merged with it upon arrival, I became complete once again. This means that if we do a Bijuu transformation, it will be physical, not energy based like the ones you used in the war when you only had half of me. Kurama informed him. Naruto's eyebrow twitched, showing his annoyance at not being told this beforehand. Thank you for the warning, he replied in annoyance. Naruto sighed and turned to everyone present. People of Konoha, he began to shout. Do not fear what is to come. I am in complete control. Know that the terrible force that once sought the destruction of the leaf is now its protector. He shouted, confusing them and making Hiruzen's eyes widen. Naruto clapped his hands together and began to merge with Kurama. Naruto then began to transform before Konoha's eyes. He grew one large long orange furred tail before another sprouted after 7 more, and he grew so tall that his body and head reached the top of the stadium. Of course it wasn't just his body and head anymore, as he had completely transformed into the thing that had haunted Konoha for years since the attack. He was the Kyuubi himself in his full physical body. He looked majestic with his 9 tails waving lazily behind him as he sat on his haunches. Naruto, seeing the fear starting to grow in most of the crowd, decided to calm them down. Don't be afraid, I'm still in control, he told them in his Kurama voice, surprising them. Naruto then turned to Orochimaru, who was still higher up in the sky, for safety. He opened his jaws and began gathering positive and negative chakra, combining them into a large Bijuu bomb. He launched it into the sky towards Orochimaru and it exploded in a massive explosion once it reached him. His screams, if he had the chance, couldn't even be heard over the shockwave the explosion created. Once finished, Naruto shifted back. All was silent in the stadium as Naruto transformed back. Then a few hundred yellow flashes appeared in the stadium, revealing all of Naruto's clones back, some covered in their enemy's blood while others tied up the sand ninja with them, as they had been told before not to kill the sand ninja. One clone approached Naruto and knelt down. It's over, boss, we win. The village is safe again. Naruto nodded. Good, then take all the clones and begin repairs, wherever the damage is. He told the clones, who nodded, and they all left again. Then it erupted, everyone there cheered loudly for Naruto. Naruto just smiled at them and waved after he snapped his fingers, knocking down all the barriers. They all went down to the field and crowded around him, praising him for keeping the village safe. With the cage. Well, I think we should probably end the exam there, Hiruzen said as he stood up, looking at Naruto with a sweet smile. Yes, I believe we should as well. I am needed for an emergency meeting in my village. Nice to see you again, Hiruzen, Onoki said as he floated into the air. Yes, me too, Mei said as she got up. Me too. Plus I'm sure Suna needs to have a meeting as well considering their cage is dead. As said getting up as well. I'm sure you all do. It's a pleasure to host you here. Hiruzen said nodding his head to them before they all walked away with their guards. With one guard from each country bringing along their daimyo. This left Hiruzen alone with the Fire Lord. Kazuki-sama, I'm sure we need to have a meeting as well. I'm retiring from my position. Hiruzen said bowing his head towards the Fire Lord who was hiding his face behind his fan. Oh well, I guess you're getting old, Hiruzen. Well, let's call the council to order. I want to get this over with quickly. Kazuki said with a smile as he silently watched the blonde get lifted into the air. Hiruzen nodded and walked away to gather the necessary members. 4 hours later with Naruto and Fu at their home. Once Naruto finally made it home, he was tackled by a crying Fu and she hugged him tightly. She then proceeded to chew him out for worrying her by doing the entire invasion in Bijuu all by herself. But Fu, I won, Naruto muttered. This time she gave him a glare before she cried again as she hugged him. Baka, I'm still worried about you, she said softly. He looked at her and smiled slightly before he kissed her cheek, causing her to blush. It was to save everyone, he said, blushing a little. Hearing this, Naruto smiled at her. Naruto, I've seen how well you can control your Bijuu and was wondering if you would train me and show me how to. He asked her. Sure, Fu-chan, Naruto cheered. Their moment was interrupted by a knock on Naruto's door. Naruto sighed and walked over to it and opened it to reveal the Anbu. Yes, Naruto asked. Your presence is required in Namikaze-sama's council room. The Anbu told him. Naruto nodded and turned to Fu. Hey Fu-chan, I'll be right back. I have to go to the council. She told him. He nodded and went to the living room. Okay Anbu-san, let's go. Naruto said. The Anbu nodded and grabbed Naruto's shoulder before they both walked away. The council room. Naruto and the Anbu appeared in the middle of the room, before the Anbu disappeared again. Naruto looked around to find himself surrounded by the shinobi council consisting of the heads of the major Konoha clans, the Hokage's advisors, the Junin commanders, the Anbu commanders, the Hokage, and the Fire Lord himself. Naruto knelt before them. How may I serve Hokage-sama? Naruto said formally, knowing he couldn't play around in front of them. There were a few chuckles heard around the room at his address. You may rise, Naruto-kun. You are here to be informed of something, Hiruzen said with a mischievous smile. Naruto raised an eyebrow but nodded and stood up with his hands in his pockets. At this the Fire Lord stood up and Naruto locked eyes with him. He smiled at Naruto before he began. Naruto Namikaze, it is my pleasure to inform you that by the decision of this council and the retirement of Hiruzen, you will be named Godime Hokage. He told him. Naruto's eyes widened and looked shocked. This was a major change in the timeline. I am honored. Thank you, Naruto said after a minute after he found his voice. Yes, it was quite a surprising decision, Hiruzen said to Naruto, remembering the meeting. 2 hours ago during the meeting, Hiruzen had gathered everyone needed for the meeting. After they were all seated, he stood up. I have called this meeting to make an announcement. I have decided to retire from being Hokage. With this announcement we must now elect a new Hokage. This is a quicker process since we already have Kazuki-sama here with us. Hiruzen told his slightly surprised council. They weren't really that surprised since it was bound to happen sooner or later due to Hiruzen's age. I see, then I nominate Kakashi Hatake, Shikaku Nara said. There were some murmurs from the assembled council. Well, he's the fourth disciple, said one member. He has experience, plus he is one of our strongest Junin, another said. I nominate Naruto Namikaze, Danzo said, stopping all conversation, earning wary looks from Hiruzen and Shikaku. You can't be serious, he is just a boy, Homura said disapprovingly. A boy who just proved to us that he can protect this entire village from an invasion by himself. A boy who is now crowned the hero of the Hidden Leaf. A boy who is a direct descendant of the fourth Hokage who is his father. Danzo replied calmly. What about experience? He may be strong but he is only a genin and has never led a team, let alone an entire village. Kaharu told him. For now that may be the case. He should pick a private council. What we should do is have an experienced member in place. He will adapt quickly, Danzo said, still as calm as ever. What about the fact that he just revealed his status as a Jinchuriki? By the way Hiruzen, why didn't you tell us about this? Homaru asked Danzo and Hiruzen. The village was in disarray at the time and it was his father's dying wish when he sealed him into Naruto to not let anyone know for fear that he would be ostracized for holding the beast that nearly destroyed our village. Hiruzen said calmly. Homura nodded, seeing his point. He then looked to Danzo for the answer to his other question. That's what makes this all the easier. He just showed at the age of 13 perfect control over a tailed beast that would fully transform and remain in control the entire time. He killed a leaf trader and didn't attack the leaf itself when he easily could have. By placing him in this position, it will show the Leaf Village's trust in him as well as him being a beacon of hope and inspiration for the next generation. Danzo said excitedly, slightly surprising Hiruzen as he couldn't detect the underlying intention from the man. Homura nodded, accepting this answer. He has also inadvertently strengthened the army by convincing the Jinchuriki of the Seven Tails to join our village. With his perfect control over his beast, I have no doubt he will be able to teach him how to control it. What's even better is that he did it while having a foolproof plan to convince his village chief that he is safer with us. He told the shocked council. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, wondering how Danzo found out that information. I believe I have heard enough, Kazuki said as he closed his fan. All the council members turned to him. I have made my decision. The Godime Hokage is Naruto Namikaze, Kazuki said. This got a nod of agreement from all of them there as the information given did prove that he was capable. Your inauguration will be held tomorrow morning on the roof of the Hokage Tower, Hiruzen said to Naruto. Naruto nodded his head. He unsealed his red sage robe and gave it to Hiruzen. Can you write the letters on the back of this robe? Naruto asked. Hiruzen nodded and accepted the robe. Be here tomorrow morning at 8. The ceremony will start at 9, Hiruzen said, ignoring Naruto. Naruto nodded and left using the Hiraishin. He reacted the same way as his father. He was humble about it while also asking for his sage robe to have writing and disappear like Minato. Kaharu said as she looked fondly at the spot Naruto had just passed. Hiruzen just chuckled. Well, hopefully his reign will be longer than his father's, Hiruzen said sadly. The others there nodded. Naruto arrived back at his house in shock. He walked into the living room and saw Fu sitting there seemingly waiting for him. As soon as he saw her, he rushed over to her. How did it go? Is everything okay? He asked worriedly. I was crowned the 5th Hokage, he said stiffly, still not able to accept the fact that he had actually achieved his dream. Fu looked at him in shock. Really? That's amazing, Naruto-kun. I'm so happy for you, she said, hugging him. Naruto hugged her back, feeling the excitement start to bubble up inside him as well. We should celebrate, Fu said. Naruto nodded. Yeah, but let's do it here since I have to be at the tower early in the morning, she told him. He nodded happily and the two stayed up late to celebrate on their own. The next morning Naruto flashed straight to the Hokage's office, or rather his office. Hiruzen was already there and it seemed like he was expecting Naruto as he had prepared some clothes for him. This is something your father left for you if you ever became Hokage. He gave it to me because he felt that I should be the one to pass it down to you, Hiruzen said, explaining about the clothes. They have a seal to grow with you, he said. Naruto looked at the clothes with a heavy heart. It was a black long-sleeved shirt with white rings on the wrists, and black Anbu pants and black ninja shoes. A mesh shirt was also there for under the armor. His sage robe now with the writing saying him as the 5th Hokage had been prepared for him. Naruto felt a few tears fall but wiped them away. He took the clothes and went to the bathroom in the tower. He came back fully dressed, including the sage robe. Hiruzen looked at him with loving eyes. You look just like both of your parents. A perfect blend of the two, he said. Naruto looked at Hiruzen with gratitude. Thank you for everything, Gigi, Naruto said. Hiruzen and looked at the clock on the wall. Well, it's time. Naruto went to the roof. I'm sure the whole village is gathered out front by now, he said with a smile. Naruto nodded and led the two of them to the roof. Arriving to see a wave of people in front of the tower looking at him with curious eyes, wondering what was going on. Naruto felt nerves building up but shook it off. He and Hiruzen then walked to the side so everyone could see them. As soon as they saw Naruto, they started cheering for their savior. Hiruzen raised his hand to silence the crowd, which they did. People of Konoha, we have come here today for a great event, Hiruzen began once they had quieted down. The time has come for me to retire from my position as your Hokage. He continued to get gasps from the smarter members of the crowd, figuring out why Naruto was with him. Hiruzen then turned to Naruto. It is with great honor that I announce that with the approval of the council and our daimyo, Naruto Namikaze is named our Godime Hokage, he announced loudly. Then a tidal wave of roars of approval rang out over the crowd as they watched Hiruzen remove his hat and place it on Naruto's kneeling head. Naruto then stood up and looked out at the crowd, raising his fist in the air with a smile. The roar grew louder. The end.